meeting for Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And as we always do, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the appeal procedures, and this is should anyone need to appeal of a decision from the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws. Notice is hereby given that if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Now, as we have been doing for a while now, we're going to open up the meeting for public comment, and the first name on my list here is John Cooper, representing Sprocket Rocket. And you are limited to 2 minutes, and we do have a timer, so please pay attention to the time and fashion your comments to fit within the 2 minutes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm John Cooper with the law firm Holland & Knight, representing Sprocket Tours. We're here to speak on the proposed rule change to Section 702 regarding the pedal vehicle operating hours. We're seeking the ability to operate between 4 and 6 on restricted routes like the entertainment vehicles were recently granted permission to do. From a legal standpoint, we view this as a fairness and equity issue since, like I said, the entertainment transportation vehicles for a couple months now, I guess, have been able to operate between the hours of 4 and 6 on restricted routes. We have a proposed route that keeps the vehicles off of Broadway. We understand that NDOT sets the routes, but we do have a proposal to submit to NDOT. All of my clients' vehicles have an electric assist motor to help power the vehicles uphill to maintain a consistent speed. And although the buses technically can go faster just because they have a big motor, practically they can't and don't because their passengers are standing. So we view the actual speed of the two vehicles from a practical standpoint is very similar. We have submitted video clips that were taken yesterday during this time period to show the traffic and how it will not be negatively impacted. We believe that we can operate safely on the route that we've proposed. We would ask for some flexibility for Mr. Rooker to be able, or NDOT to be able to temporarily adjust the routes in case of road closures, but otherwise we would stick to the set route. Mr. Emmett Martin, owner of Sprocket Tours, is here to speak and can also answer any questions you might have when the item comes up on the agenda. I would note that when I was council director, I wrote the original law for pedal carriages over 10 years ago, and Emmett has been here since then. Thank you.
It's rather abrupt ending.
That's a serious law.
What did you say the last name was? Thank you, TD. Got everybody's attention? All right. And I apologize on the next name. I have a hard time reading it, but you're up to the table, so introduce yourself, please.
It's Emmett Martin.
Okay.
Okay.
With bad handwriting.
That's it.
I don't see Martin at the last there, but I'll take your word for it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Really, I'm just here to back up what he just said. He pretty much said everything that we need to say. So if you guys have any questions or if you want me to just kind of reiterate what he said.
There's no need to actually have to repeat what was said before, but we appreciate you being here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Michael Winters, you're up there.
Michael Winters. I operate the Nashville tractor and cruise in Nashville. First off, thank you for pushing my stuff to this agenda. I had rotator cuff surgery. I'm about 3 weeks out, so I definitely appreciate the push. But because of that surgery, I ended up watching a lot of the videos and stuff online just so I could stay caught up with what was going on, and that's my reason for sitting here right now. As I watched the videos, I kept hearing a lot of requests for proof, data, videos, emails, content of any kind in relation to Grant's complaint. Every one of you actually had that in your email except for the new people. I sent an email on May 16th when I withdrew my complaint, withdrawing my complaint, and also included a Dropbox file with dozens of videos, pictures, content, customer service recorded phone calls, anything and everything you might want to know to every single person on this commission, director included. With the exception of the new people and new attorney. So just from a content standpoint, if you're wanting to review content, you have more than you'll ever want to watch. It's in your Dropbox folder that I sent in May. And that was my only comment.
Thank you. The next name on the list is Ash Derriere.
Hi, I'm Ash Pereira. I run the majority of pedicabs in Nashville. In 2019, this commission provided over 30 jobs to pedicabbers when we were no longer in business for about 2 years, from 2017 to 2018. So I want to express my immense gratitude to this commission for giving back the jobs to my people. We've been able to operate and make a living. As we all know, the economy has been a little bit tight, and the last year pedicabs have been approved up, I think 45% of what has been on the road. It increased to 45 in approval for new permits. So that makes our commercial lease kind of tough. It makes a competition, which is good, but we also under code fall under the same rules as pedal carriages, even though we're a completely different vehicle. To those of you that don't know what pedicabs are, they're the tricycles with the rider in the front who are pedaling, and there's a small carriage in the back for 2 or 3 people. We're very mobile, we're very versatile, we can keep up with traffic. We've been following the 4 to 6 rule for over 10 years. The amount of time, or about 10 years, we're getting close to that. This extremely limits our pedicabbers from being able to make an income during that time. And we do not like to be in high traffic areas because we're not necessarily a tour business. We're more A to B, and we do not operate well in high traffic areas. So we avoid Broadway during 4 to 6. We avoid Broadway when it gets too congested because the business is not good for the pedicabbers during that time. So if you would allow us to be a part of that 4 to 6 rule, or just like the Connect study noticed that pedicabs were not an issue with traffic, that this would provide an opportunity for us to make the needs and pay the rent, honestly, and help our drivers earn an income, especially with the dramatic increase of pedicabs on the road within the last year. Anything else I would like to say? We, like I said, avoid high traffic areas, which prevents Ubers and Lyfts from actually coming into Nashville when we're able to provide point A to B transportation already downtown to those who are needing it right then and there.
Your 2 minutes is up.
Thank you very much. I was
question.
waiting for the bell. Sorry.
Are your drivers the ones who transport people back and forth during the Titans games?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that all right? Thank you.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes,
or
sir.
Make a suggestion? Would you put all that in writing and send it to Mr. Rooker and CC all of us?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, the next name on the list is Max Kasky. Why is everybody carrying a cell phone?
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Kasky, and I've got a letter to read on behalf of Councilmember Jacob Coupin. So recently, the TLC approved a contract which required that scooters be put in corrals across the city. We know that NDOT has been hard at work at putting these out, but we want to encourage the Commission and the Department of Transportation to get these corrals out as soon as possible. We get regular calls from constituents about complaints of scooters blocking sidewalks, wheelchairs not being able to get around them, people tripping, etc. Additionally, we would like to ask for increased enforcement when people ride scooters on sidewalks as well. We've watched recently a number of collisions both with moving and non-moving scooters. Recently, the council member saw two people crash into each other on a sidewalk, and a pedestrian was injured as well as they were there. These riders looked younger than 18, though we believe that now you're required to be over 18 to ride. We appreciate the work that's being done and would like to just encourage everyone to move as quickly as possible on this issue so that no one else has to get hurt. Thank you so much for your efforts. We know you're working on it, and we greatly appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Caskey. Stephen Denninger.
Hi, everybody. Did not expect to be here today, so appreciate your time.
Please state your name and what you're speaking about today.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Denninger. I am petitioning for a better understanding for citizens on the towing fees within Nashville. So, on Monday, I made a reservation via Open Table for a restaurant. On their booking, it stated that we have temporarily suspended valet service. When I got to the restaurant and parked, despite seeing a sign that indicated that valet would be taking place from 6 p.m. until midnight, there was no valet there. So, Monday, I read that valet was suspended, and on Tuesday, I arrived during the posted valet hours, and valet was not operating. The next day, my car was towed from that place. Now, I will be speaking with the restaurant about the towing fee. However, I do not understand how a car that was picked up at 11:39 a.m. yesterday from the location, which then I picked up less than 6 hours later, cost me $291. $210 for the towing charge, $21 for something I don't fully understand, and another $55 to store the car in the lot. What sort of influence does this committee have on towing fees? It seems like an exorbitant amount of money to pay. I ended up leaving my car there parked because I drank too much to drive. And I don't feel like this is fair to be charged nearly $300 for choosing to not drive drunk.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to close the public comment period. Have all the commissioners been provided a copy of the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to read them?
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? And that would be August 15th of 2024.
I move that we approve the minutes of the August meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes from the August meeting are now approved. Mr. Rooker, we now have come up to the disciplinary hearing section of today's agenda.
Yes, sir. The first one is Grant Rosenblatt's complaint against Old Town Trolley operations between 4 and 6. Metro Legal will be addressing this issue on the agenda.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I believe that before the meeting, a possible settlement resolution was passed out to you all, along with the new state law. Metro Legal worked with Old Town Trolley's attorney on crafting this possible settlement, and we offer it for your consideration.
Has everybody got a copy of the, what is 9-paragraph proposed resolution?
8 paragraphs.
Yeah, and that actually is 8 paragraphs. Number 9 actually slides right up to paragraph 8. It was just a hard, what do you call it, a hard reset or something?
Hard return.
Hard return, thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the resolution is and what we should, what considerations we should have on it, please.
So this resolution lays out the complaints against Old Town Trolley. And if you can see, you see where the complaints are explained in paragraph 2. Paragraph 3 states that Old Town Trolley concedes that it operated vehicles between 4 and 6 p.m. during the period of August 18th through the 22nd, 2022, and March the 20th, 2024, and that this is a violation of Rule 805F. The next paragraph goes on to explain that the Commission accepts this omission and finds that those operations were a continuing violation of Section 805F. And number 5, which I think is probably one of the more important paragraphs, goes on to explain that as of May the 1st, 2024, the state legislature passed Tennessee Code Annotated 7-51-1008, which establishes a new disciplinary matrix that the Commission must use when determining whether to revoke a permit for an ETV operator. Given the new state law's material effect on disciplinary matters, the Commission elects not to impose discipline on any ETV operators who had a permit as of May the 1st, 2024, including Old Town Trolley, for any infraction occurring before that date. And that is advice that legal has come up with as a result of the passage of this new state law, that since the standards were changed as of May the 1st, 2024 for ETV operators in terms of revoking a permit, it would be cleaner and more effective to not impose discipline for violations before that date.
And I think you've provided everyone a copy of Tennessee Code Annotated 751-1008.
Yes,
Okay.
we did before this meeting, so that you all have it in front of you.
Which somewhat limits our ability to revoke or refuse to renew a permit under, I would say, our previous methods of operation.
Yes.
To set up a new standard for how that is to be conducted effective May 1st, 2024.
Yes, I believe that is correct. As of May the 1st, 2024, the state has constrained, I think, some authority and offered you new standards that you now must abide by in terms of administrative hearing, the defined term good cause, and what must occur for a revocation. And the resolution goes on to explain that there was an additional violation on April the 19th, 2024, that also represents a violation of Rule 805F. And we recommend that based upon the new state law and the new standards that it imposes, that no discipline be imposed for these violations that occurred prior to May the 1st, 2024.
Did you also find that there was some remedial action by Old Town Trolley that would also be a consideration for no sanctions being imposed?
It is my understanding that once they were notified of the April 19th, 2024 violation and that they shouldn't be operating as they were, they took corrective action.
So in summary, it sounds like they're going to be admitting the violations, and the recommendation is to accept this resolution.
Yes, that is our recommendation.
Open up to commissioners for questions or thoughts, considerations.
I have a newbie question. What was the genesis of the state law?
As a newbie, and maybe somebody in the audience can answer. I think Erica may answer.
I believe there was some lobbying on behalf of the ETV companies in the state legislature to around the time that the annual hearing for the renewal of ETV permits was going to come up. For April of this year, previous to that, this commission had made a finding of the requisite number of ETVs based on the Connect Downtown study that they felt was in compliance with traffic and safety. And that finding was 35 to 70. And at the time, There were, I think, and TD, correct me if I'm wrong, 91 active permits. Before the annual hearing, the state passed the law that you see in front of you, Section 51, 1008.
So it codified the number of permits.
Well, it didn't really codify the number of permits, but the commission cannot revoke permits without good cause shown during an administrative hearing.
Okay. And, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, cutting through it a little bit more, is that if you look at subsection A1 on this statute, there was serious consideration to reducing the number of ETVs based upon the Connect Downtown study, and there was a lobbying effort before the state legislature to what's the word I'm looking for, Metro Legal, to impede our ability to not renew permits unless there was a material, as it later was found to be a material violation of state law. So the thrust at that time was to not allow us to not renew permits.
Wow. Okay.
It has a twofold effect, essentially. You can't refuse to renew, but you also can't revoke unless you comply with the law as it's laid out.
And that is effective as of May 1st of this year.
Correct.
Yes.
So essentially, that really sort of changes the standard of how we would operate or deal with this kind of complaint that happened prior to May 1. So there's kind of a funny due process problem.
It does set a standard for us, which is we would have to find a material violation of state law or a municipal ordinance, rule, or regulation governing the permit. So, which is subsection B1.
Yes, that is correct. So it changes the standards. So there is a consideration that since the standards were changed, it doesn't seem fair as far as revocation to apply things that happened before, since nobody was on notice that this would be passed when the conduct was happening, if that makes sense.
Again, newbie question. So the complaint before us is asking us to punish something that happened before, even though there's a state law that says we can't punish something that happened before?
I don't know that that's entirely what's happening. Erica?
The complaint is that Old Town Trolley operated during prohibited hours. And that was the complaint that was made by Mr. Rosenblatt between 4 to 6.
Right.
And so now it's up to the commission to decide how to handle that complaint as far as discipline being imposed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So, and essentially, Old Town Trolley has conceded that they violated the rules at that point. I mean, as this
Yes.
potential resolution is laid out.
Yes, you can see that they have.
And we have been told that they stopped as soon as they were caught.
As soon as they received the letter for the April 19th, 2024 complaint.
Yes, the TLC essentially sent a cease and desist letter, which as soon as they received that, it's our understanding that they did stop operating between those hours. And they've admitted that they were violating the rules at that time by operating as such.
So essentially, there isn't it with the law change. There's not a change in the wrongdoing or any of the whether that was a violation or a material violation, but the due process standards have now been overlaid on top of that, have changed, and so I think it's what I'm hearing is that it's for purposes of perhaps starting with a clean slate so that everyone's being treated the same going forward that we adopt the resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that we would also like to emphasize that we are advising that as of May the 1st, all ETV operators are, I guess, clean slate, I'll use your word, won't be punished for anything that happened before May the 1st. That would be our advice.
And that's really in your paragraph, proposed paragraph 5, which says that proposes that we would elect not to impose discipline on any operator who had a permit as of the 1st, including Old Town Trolley, for any infraction that happened before that date.
Yes, that is correct.
Well, we've used the word clean slate. There is an admission by Old Town Trolley to violations of our rules.
Yes, you can see that in here they have admitted the violations.
Okay. So what you're asking us is to vote to adopt this resolution to resolve this complaint?
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
I'm willing to make a motion to that effect. Do I need to read the resolution?
No, I think you can make a motion to adopt the resolution that it will become part of the record today.
Great. Then I will make a motion to adopt the resolution proposed to us by the attorneys that will be made a part of the record today.
Dealing with the complaint against.
Dealing with the complaint against Old Town Trolley.
And I'll second that motion.
All right. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain. So we have 2 abstaining and 1. Do we have 3 ayes?
Mm-hmm. We have 3 ayes.
Okay. Sounds like the motion passes. All right. Mr. Rooker, going to Michael Winter's complaint of alleged violations set forth in the Metropolitan Code, Chapter 2.10, that was deferred from April.
Yes, sir. It was deferred from April. I think Mr. Winters is here, and we're ready to begin.
Once again, Michael Winters, Nashville Tractor, Cruise in Nashville, and for anybody that wasn't here, I think you all were. I do appreciate you pushing it. I had rotator cuff surgery, so I've been hopping along for the last couple of weeks. I appreciate the push. First off, I wanted to explain the complaint is the last thing I ever wanted to turn in. I can probably speak for Grant as well and anybody else that filed a complaint in relation to Old Time Trolley as an example. It wasn't about Old Time Trolley. It was about being heard and about fairness. It had nothing to do with them and whether they were right or wrong. We really didn't care. So, the complaints that were filed all at the same time were about getting things to have a conversation about. Reality is if you agree every one of the complaints that I filed that I'm correct, I gain nothing. I don't get a trophy. I don't get a check. I don't get an extra permit. It's just about being heard. That's the sole purpose of the complaint, which leads me to one of my points. I think we ought to somewhere have something in the TLC where people that hold permits have a voice that maybe doesn't come down to filing a complaint. Seems like a lot of work to be heard on a topic that you think you need to explain for more than 2 minutes with feedback from the TLC, not just public hearing stuff. Just side note. That being said, let me get into the gist of the complaints. And keep in mind, I've got about 5 of them. I don't think I filed them all. So you may have to point me in the right direction. I think one of them is in reference to section 2-100-055. Is that one that you have?
The complaint I have, Mr. Winters, is the one set forth on the agenda, the code section 2.100.
100, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so, sorry, I'm sliding over to the correct stuff. So you did not have the second, well, that's also 2-100. It's 2 different complaints, but they're both in relation to 2-100. Maybe that's all, why it's in there together.
Yes, sir.
Let me start with the gist of probably the crux of why I ultimately filed a complaint. I had, and still have, although it seems to have gotten better, I have an issue with self-appointed seats on this commission. And let me define what I mean by that, and you guys can tell me where I'm right and wrong. If you read the charter, there's X amount of people, that are appointed by the mayor, voted in, Chamber of Commerce. There's different ways people get here. The problem that I have, and I have dates, times, and all kinds of stuff we can go through if we really want to chew through it, was back in 2022 when we were talking about rules and number of permits and all the stuff that we were debating. The NDOT director had an open mic, was not ever acknowledged, just talked at random, talked at will, talked about anything that she thought was important to the conversation. I brought it up during that meeting and was very quickly shut down to basically sit down and be quiet. When I asked the question, why do we have a seat in open mic for someone who's not on the commission? It's not how Robert's rules works. It's not how the commission works. It's not how the charter works. After the meeting, I asked the NDOT director very candidly, is that okay? And the response I got was, I'm staff. I can appoint myself up here if I want and talk at will, was the answer I got. So my complaint that I filed is for this commission to decide, I guess, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And I can go through all the subsections of why I think it's not allowed. But the complaint simply reads, TLC commissioner, TLC director, and TLC legal allowed the NDOT director to self-appoint a seat on TLC commissions in violation of Metro charter. And then my note here, if the NDOT director or whoever can be on the commission and talk at will, by the charter rules, anybody that's up here that can give comment, sway opinion, and help make decisions is part of the commission, which means now if the NDOT director and Rooker are in their office talking about stuff on the agenda, that's a public meeting. So I think the precedent has to be set on whether or not the NDOT director or whoever happens to be sitting there has an open mic and the ability to talk. Now I'll take this a step further, where you also get into violation of state law as it relates to the public open act meeting. When we were going through the old time trolley stuff before I dropped my complaint, me and Grant and a couple others gave our complaint information. It got postponed and we all left. As we left, Grant realized he forgot a pen or something and came back in. No sooner than he'd been out the door 5 minutes, Ms. Alacron is sitting over here during the meeting talking to the Old Town Trolley attorney, as well as the TLC attorney, not this one, was sitting out here during the meeting talking to Old Town Trolley's attorney. If those two people are on the table and they're part of who can make decisions, recommendations, and those kind of things, that's an open meeting. They can't have sidebar during a meeting. And then take it a step further, the TLC attorney at the time walked over to here to Ms. Alacron's desk. All this is on video. They turned their mics away to talk during the meeting. So my point in the complaint is I just want to understand who's on the TLC commission, what are their rights and rules they follow, and does the commission allow Ms. Alacron or whoever else who thinks that they need to come in and get feedback to have open live mic time as much as they want. It was really the gist of the complaint. Because a lot of the feedback, very candidly, she was giving in the meeting directed what ended up happening, which is the 30 to 90 permits. And if you go back and watch the videos, which I've watched all of them dozens of times, the chair at the time did not want to do it. He adamantly opposed voting on something a year in advance. And his quote, I'm semi-quoting, was, our charter requires us to review the market, review the applicants, review the vehicles, review all the things that are happening in Nashville to make a decision. His complaint at the time was, how can I make a decision on next year's permits when I'm required to review live data? Very candidly, the NDOT director and TLC attorney shoved it down the TLC's throats until a vote was taken. For expert advice, for opinions, for thoughts, for whatever he decides is relevant. But it shouldn't be live mic. So I'll put a pause there so we can maybe discuss what's the right and wrongs there, just so we all know.
Well, are you done?
Well, I can go through content and dates and times and video formats if you want me to, but I'm highlighting.
No, I think we got the gist of what your complaint is. I've asked Metro Legal to do a little digging and give us a little, especially since we have several new commissioners, to give us a little bit of the enabling authority for the commission, our independence, and also to look into the complaint from Mr. Winters. Would you be able to assist us?
Yes, sir. Just going to try to move this a little closer. Okay, so Mr. Winters is correct. The Transportation Licensing Commission is formed under Chapter 2.100 of the Metro Code, not the charter, it's the Metro Code. And I'm going to read to you section 2.100.010, which is created-membership. And it reads, there is created a Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission. Such board shall consist of 9 public members. 5 members are to be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by a majority vote of the whole membership of the Metropolitan Council. 4 members are to be elected by a majority vote of the Metropolitan Council. Okay, sorry. I lost my place. The members shall serve without compensation for a term of 2 years or until their successors are appointed. Of the mayor's appointees, at least 1 member shall be a resident within the area of the downtown or Gulch Central Business Improvement District, and 1 member shall be a representative of the hospitality sector, to be appointed by the mayor from a list of 3 persons recommended jointly by the Board of Directors, Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Directors of the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, and the Board of Directors of the Nashville Downtown Partnership. Now, as far as jurisdiction and licensing and rulemaking authority, that is governed by Section 2.100.030 of the Metro Code, and that states that the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, with the support of its staff employed by the Department of Public Works, which is now NDOT, shall have exclusive jurisdiction over the licensing and regulations of all vehicles for hire, including but not limited to taxi cabs, wreckers, sedans, limousines, horse-drawn carriages, and other passenger vehicles for hire, and persons or businesses engaged in the practice of booting vehicles. The Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, along with the Metropolitan Department of Public Works, which is now NDOT again, in its role providing and employing the staff to the Transportation Licensing Commission, shall collectively constitute the only administrative agencies for the administration of all laws and ordinances relating to the licensing and regulation of vehicles for hire and booting services. And then there's more that follows. There's some subsections that provide you with the authority to adopt, promulgate, and enforce the rules to carry out the provisions and the agents, or not the agencies, the fields you represent. And it also gives you the authority to license and permit for vehicles for hire, and it allows you to hold and fix a public hearing with respect to rules and regulations to be adopted. Now, that is kind of the overall authority, and that's your role as the TLC. Pursuant to Chapter 4 of Section 8.405 of the Metro Charter, the NDOT director shall have the general management and control of the several divisions and units of the department, and shall have the power to make rules and regulations for the conduct of the business of the department consistent with the charter and the Metro Code. And one of the functions of NDOT is I'm quoting here, the administration and enforcement of all laws, ordinances, and regulations relating to permits and licenses for, and I'm paraphrasing, taxi cabs and other passenger vehicles for hire, provided that all licenses and permits issued shall be approved or regulated as may be provided by ordinance, which is you. So, Section 2, going back to the TLC provision, are you confused? Do you have any questions? I'm giving you a lot of information. Okay. Okay, so Section 2.100.030 is the section that we think provides the TLC with, and NDOT with the authority to provide staff for your assistance. And so we don't think there's any wrongdoing with Ms. Alarcon sitting here and being asked questions by the commission and providing her her information and advice, because that section provides that the TLC, with the support of staff, shall have the exclusive jurisdiction, and you're collectively constituting the only administrative agencies for the administration of these rules.
And just to clarify that real quick, just so we're on the same page.
Sure.
I've never complained about her sitting there. That's not my issue. But if you go back and look at the videos back in 22 all the way through probably the last couple months, I mean, there's 20, 30, 40 comments a meeting, just open live mic stuff without requests as expert advice or whatever it may be from the chairman. And that's, I'm trying to clarify, is that live mic part of the commission? Because if so, certain rules apply to her that apply to the commission. If she's not part of the commission, there's certain rules that don't apply. And as our industry is constantly looking at what rules we got to follow and, you know, that kind of stuff, we also like to know what rules that are on the other side of the table. It's just, we're trying to figure the game out to some extent.
Ms. Haber, as I understand, so we are an independent commission called the Transportation Licensing Commission, appointed by either the mayor or the Metro Council.
That's correct.
We operate independent of NDOT.
Correct.
But 2.100.030 says that the Transportation Licensing Commission, along with NDOT, that NDOT is providing us our staff and input on input for decisions that we have to make.
That's correct. And even if you go a little further, Chapter 20.100.040 is duties of Chief of Police and Chief Traffic Engineer. The Chief of Police or the Metropolitan Government and the Chief Traffic Engineer of the Metropolitan Traffic and Parking Commission shall, in their official capacities, advise the board when requested concerning those matters of public safety and proper traffic control. But that's to advise. Mr. Winters, I believe, cited that section in his complaint, and I don't think that's relevant here because it refers to the traffic and parking Chief Traffic Engineer and refers to NYPD, Metro Nashville Police Department. And you may request their presence to help with traffic, but NDOT may, I said sitting here, but they may also participate under these rules because you're collaboratively working together.
And I've had the privilege of sitting on this commission for a little over 11 years now, and I know from the very first time I started here, we've had Mr. Fields, who was the director of the Transportation Licensing Commission, sitting at the table, I think with a mic in front of him, and just as we do Mr. Rooker. Traditionally, the previous chairperson and the one before that one did not necessarily have to just say, Mr. Fields, would you please advise us on this? Often we would ask that, but often he would pipe up whenever he thought he could help us with something. He would spontaneously give us information that would be helpful.
Or somebody might look perplexed. It doesn't always necessarily mean when you're when you're collaborating. You know, you might see that I look confused and I look to the right, or maybe you don't see it because it's not on the video that you were watching, but she can see it, or the prior administrator could see it. In my opinion, the director is absolutely not a member of the commission, but it is somebody that is staff that we rely on for input. And oftentimes, maybe not oftentimes, I can't say that I've watched all the video again. I may or may not disagree or agree with the director, but there are definitely things that you're not going to see on the video, like that perplexed look where maybe Mr. Rooker or Mr. Fields sees that we need help.
Well, and
he does.
Oftentimes TD has assisted us.
He pipes up because I look over confused. And that intimates that you can't see on the video that, hey, I need help. And so she's responding or he's responding to that verbal cue that you're not seeing.
And I agree. Obviously, this built up over 12 months of trying to figure out permits and rules and all that kind of stuff. But along the way, other things happen. I mean, this whole old-time trolley mess that we're just going through right now. I mean, according to the old-time trolley attorney, I'm assuming he's pretty solid on his facts. You know, 3/15/3/20 of 2024, the NDOT director and somebody from the TLC sat down and talked about moving buses and where they could park and all that kind of stuff. But yet on 4/18 of 24, the NDOT director had a meeting with about 20 some odd sightseeing companies and said in that meeting, nobody operates from 4 to 6. It's a violation. Nobody can do it. We're citing anybody that does it. But 30 days prior to that, according to the old time trolley attorney, which I'm assuming is pretty factual, 30 days prior to that, they're sitting down talking about where they're going to park the buses. The problem is, Ricky has shot me straight. I may not like it. Billy shot me straight. I may not like it. Billy spoke up in meetings I saw when he was needed or somebody had a perplexed thing. What I saw over the last 18 months in Live Mike is 30 to 40 comments leading down a path and pushing the TLC down a path that I'm not sure they wanted to go down at the time. And as an operator where somebody's being forced to make decisions a year in advance, it just seems screwy. So that's why I wanted clarification on, the open mic thing, because it obviously swayed meetings greatly, and decisions that were made. And that's where, some of this stuff came from. But then once again, you take into the account, when in this room, it's about, we got to go to 35 to 70 permits because we have to, the traffic study says so. But 30 days later, when the NDOT director is at the city council meeting asking for permission, because we had to get permission, the exact quote was, I need this authority to control bad actors. Nothing was said about we got to get to 35 to 70 because the traffic control study said so. It's to control bad actors. My problem is there's a lot of faces being spun around, and when that person who spins the face around to get a yes has a live mic, it drastically sways the commission, in my opinion. That's just my 2 cents, and from what I read, it wasn't allowed. Maybe I'm wrong. Very possible.
Mr. Winters, are you alleging in any, I didn't see it here, but that Ms. Alcorn has voted in a Transportation Licensing Commission?
Not in any way.
Vote? Okay.
But when you strongly steer, if you go back and watch the 2022 videos where the chair said, I'm not comfortable doing this vote, our rules say we should wait. Ms. Alcorn and the TLC attorney obviously had an agenda that we were going to get this passed today.
Well,
and that's what started all this.
Sure. I mean, we're all here serving, and we have other jobs, so we have to rely on the staff to give us guidance, if because it's their everyday job. So I don't see that there's any validity to your concern unless you have some evidence that she has placed a vote on this commission.
None whatsoever.
Okay.
I concur with Commissioner Penley. This is a volunteer.
Totally get it.
And I love doing it, but I am not in the NDOT world every day. And I really value Director Alacron's input. And I agree with Commissioner Hayes that up here, they can see that we're struggling with something. And I invite clarification when that happens.
Totally get it.
And I'll also point out that when we're having hearings or discussions, the previous chairperson and this chairperson will follow the same protocol. When someone raises their hand, I often invite them up to speak. And you have been one of them, Mr. Winter.
You are 100% correct. Yes, you let me speak when I shouldn't have. I agree.
Well, I didn't say that. I said I'd let you speak when you wanted to have some input. So I am not closing anybody's mic off here or trying to chill anybody's effort to help guide this commission. So, does Metro have a recommendation on this particular complaint?
And I do have some other parts that I was trying to break it up a little bit. If you want to chop it up or say it all now.
Is there more to what you have?
No, it falls into the same rules, and I guess this is the clarification that I'm hoping the TLC can agree to. When we went to do permits this year, we have. And I'm not trying to pick on people, so this sounds bad, but we have commissioners who are filing complaints a month before permit time. Matter of fact, 29% of the complaints filed in the first part of 24 were for a TLC commissioner as we're getting ready to get into complaints. I think you either have to be a council person, you got to be a citizen. I don't think you can be cop and judge to some extent. I have a problem with that. I don't know if the TLC wants to make their own rule on how commissioners can Yes.
It sounds like now you're getting into a question of whether a commissioner who makes a complaint, are you saying on Hub Nashville?
Yes.
And can sit on the commission when reviewing permits or whatever?
For instance, Mr. Hayes
Oh,
abstained a minute
hold
ago,
on.
I think, because he filed a complaint, if I guess.
Mr.
Yeah.
Winters,
Yeah.
please, am I summarizing your complaint or in general what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not,
Is
yes.
that on our agenda today?
It's under the rules that you're governed by, right? Am I incorrect?
No, I only have one consumer complaint in front of me today that's got your signature on it.
And it doesn't fall under these rules on,
In the description of the complaint, it does not.
I didn't write
discuss.
everything. I mean, that's obviously a big section.
Chair, that would need to be done in a separate complaint. That's the only complaint that is before the commission today.
And it has to be specifically spelled out. You can't list the chapter and then talk about said chapter, I guess is what I'm asking.
I agree. Yes, I would say you need to be specific on your description. It says here, description of the incident, use reverse or additional sheets if needed. And the only thing I have here was your question about the propriety of NDOT's director sitting at the table with an open.
And I agree. I didn't write it all down. I thought the chapter listed was enough. That's my fault.
And I will tell you that we have given some thoughts to the other matter that you were going to bring up, but that's not on our agenda today. Okay?
I appreciate that. I do.
Back to legal. Do you have a recommendation about this, about the complaint that is on the agenda and before us today?
Excuse me,
I think you did, but I just
Metro
wanted-
Legal recommends dismissal of the complaint based on the law that I recited to you earlier.
And that law would be 2.100.030, jurisdiction, licensing, and rulemaking authority, where it talked about the Transportation License Commission along with Metropolitan Department of Public Works, which is now NDOT.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I guess I would just say that not everybody might like how we operate or how we make decisions. But it seems to me that there's no violation of the rules or charter. I get my language wrong. So I would make a motion to dismiss the complaint.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Winters, I will say that I respect what you have brought to our attention, and I will be aware of the importance of this commission showing its independence of NDOT. But as I said before, we are not going to close off input that might help guide the commissioners in making decisions. Thank you.
I felt like it had to be said. This is the only place to really say it. So.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Rooker, we are now moving on to an emergency suspension of taxicab driver Yusef Shefhata Michael's permit, I assume.
Yes, sir. Mr. Michael's here. I have not heard from Mr. Wallen, so I don't know if he's still representing Mr. Michael or not.
Looks like he's moving up to
Looks like
the table.
Come on, yes, sit down, Mr. Michael. In the letter that you have in your packets that I'm sure you've all read, you had a disciplinary hearing against Mr. Michael on March the 23rd of 2023 where it resulted in an anger management class that you made him go to that he did complete. So later on, around April 28th of 2024 and May 23rd of 2024, we received complaints about Mr. Michael from citizens of very hostile and abusive behavior and overcharging.
Mr. Rooker?
Yes, sir.
Before we go too
Sure.
far, let me ask is Paul Wallen still representing you? Is he going to be here today? All right, so you're waiving Mr. Wallen's presence here and you want to defend yourself?
No, I need him.
You need him?
Yes, sir. But I just want to explain what happened this time.
Yeah, well, I have not heard from Mr. Wallen, and he was aware of the hearing today, so I don't, however the chair wants to proceed.
You want to give Mr. Wallen a call and see if he's going to show up?
I don't know what to do. But I just want to explain what happened this time. Can I?
All right, well, all right, then we're going to go ahead and proceed if that's what you want to do today.
So you give me a choice that to present myself and explain what happened, or I wait for my attorney?
That's the choice I'm offering you right now.
Okay, I will wait for my attorney.
Okay? We're going to move you, unless anybody has opposition to it, we're going to move you to the end of the docket today, or the end of the agenda today. Go call Mr. Wallen and see if you can get him here. Is that okay with you, Mr. Rooker?
Can,
Perfectly fine. Yes, sir.
can I just show you something?
No. Go get your lawyer. Or be prepared to represent yourself at the end of the agenda today.
If he's not gonna show up, you're gonna move me the next time, right? I'm just gonna try to call him right now.
I'm not making that promise right now. Go try to find him. All right, maybe the next one's a little easier. Mr. Rooker, we have the consent items.
Yes, sir. We have 22 new OPVH, other passenger vehicle for hire companies that have made application. Their applications are in order, and the company's names can be read into the minutes, and we would, staff recommendation would be to approve these 22 new companies.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have counted up 22 of these OPVHs, and I think, I appreciate the consent and the way that this moves along the proceedings. I have a question. Do we have a running total on these? Because as we have looked at other permits, I just want to make sure that these are staying within, recommendations or.
442 OPVH and 502 taxi currently.
Which does that still stay below our typical annual numbers?
I can respond that at the height of the taxi industry in 2013, we had 1,300 licensed cabs.
TD, is this addressed at all in the study, in the Connect study, or Director Alcorn?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, what was recognized in Connect Downtown is that what has substitute the reduction in taxi has been made up more so in Uber and Lyft. So we do have a considerable issue. And Connect Downtown actually had recommended that during the day, because part of our challenge during the day is also with being able to make deliveries, people illegally parking and loading zones. The recommendation is to find a way to manage the loading and unloading zones better, as well as expand the number of loading and unloading zones. And in the afternoon, it becomes shared space for Uber, Lyft, and taxis, because we have an issue with them in the evenings and on the weekends where they are clouding the streets, not allowing for people to move. So especially starting around 4 and going into the evening is when we have a challenge. So that's part of the next phase after we get done with the scooter corrals and the bicycle corrals. We're going to start moving into expanding the loading zones, managing the loading zones, and then working with the taxi, Uber, and Lyft on actually using those at their peak time so that they're not blocking and crowding the roads for people that need to move within the downtown core.
Go ahead. No. Well, I appreciate that, and that's great to hear that we're moving towards that. So we don't really have our arms around what the ride share numbers are to take where taxis have declined, ride shares increased, but we don't really know how much. So I'm just making sure that we aren't just carte blanche every meeting approving 20 plus new permits for vehicles when we're giving a lot of thought and consideration to other companies that are asking for.
And these vehicles will be required to follow the same conditions. So if they're doing deliveries downtown, they would have to use the areas that are actually set up for drop off and pickup. They won't be able to go from a point A to point B. It's going to be set designated area. The curb's going to be managed. There will be a fee charged if they're using another area that's not allowed. So there's a lot going into getting it organized. I would say as of right now, I think Uber and Lyft has definitely made us upside down. I don't have the exact number, but there is a lot of conversation. Right now, some Uber and Lyft are trying to strike because of other initiatives. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. But right now, we do not have the ability to manage Uber and Lyft and how many they are. The state has actually supersedes us on that requirement, but we do have it with the black service vehicles. So I think we are at a tipping point, but I can't put my hand on the exact number, but we are going to have conversations with the state given the circumstances and the data that we did collect. But we are definitely exceeding in the number of Uber and Lyfts we have over what we had in taxis back in 2013.
Right.
One thing to follow up on her comment, and the numbers that were provided, I think this is correct. We don't know if it's Uber X or if it's Uber Green. We know about Uber Black.
Yeah. That is correct.
Right, but there could be another 5,000 Uber X's that are helping people get around Middle Tennessee and making deliveries and doing other things. I think it's a hard one for us to judge what the appropriate number is. I could argue if I'm waiting 45 minutes to get one that there aren't enough, right? So it's a difficult one to try to evaluate what the appropriate number is. And from NDOT's perspective, they don't necessarily want, and I think as for Nashvillians, we don't necessarily want them just endlessly driving around empty. Right. I don't know that I would be if I was a rideshare driver delivery person, because I'm spending fuel and putting wear and tear on my vehicle. As an independent contractor, that's probably not the most efficient thing I can do with my time or resources.
And Commissioner, some of these companies that you all approve, they next year when it comes back time for them to renew their certificate with us, they don't come back. So we have a hard time during that time knowing if somebody's going to actually renew or not. So we don't know if they're going out of business. We don't know, what the situation may be until they have to renew.
The market may dictate that.
Sure,
if you get a license and then don't get any fares, you probably don't keep doing it.
Yes, sir.
So I've struggled with this one as a business owner who tries to follow all the rules and is permitted also under Metro government, and has seen people come into my area of business without a permit and kind of running wild. And so I am pro-business, and I want to see these folks, succeed and everything like that. I wonder, because I also see the other side of Commissioner Penley's argument of carte blanche is tough for me too. So this is a question for, I think, legal and NDOT. Is there a middle ground to say, could we permit these vehicles on a temporary basis for 6 months? And then is there a way to make sure that they are following these rules? And then, is there a path that way, a sort of temporary permit?
Ricky, do you want me to take that, or would you like to?
You can.
Okay.
If you want to.
I think I'll start. I'm going to need a little help from legal on this one. As of right now, we typically allow for a 1-year permit to be issued. I'm not sure if we have rules that allow us to do like a probationary period or a reduced time. I'm thinking that would be a rule that the commission would actually have to establish. We also right now do not track where everybody's working and how and what they're doing, and are they doing what they said they would. I believe we can ask for that data, and we would if we felt there was some serious violation, but we typically have not. So I would say again, I think we're at a tipping point when it comes to having too many vehicles for hire on the road. And that's thrown in Uber and Lyft, even though we cannot mandate that. And I do agree, Mark, it kind of drives some of that as well. But I also know that Uber and Lyft is not replacing trips. It's adding more trips to the road, and it's actually creating more traffic congestion than we've ever experienced since they came into play. So I would say, and this I'm turning to legal, how if the commission had a desire to provide permits, but not on an annual basis, how would they do that? So I'm going to turn that over to legal. Thank you for the question.
I think we'll require a Metro Code amendment section 674045 refers to annual renewal, and it says all certificates issued, this chapter governs other passenger vehicles for hire, their annual renewal. And subsection A states that all certificates issued under the provisions of this chapter shall expire 1 year before the date following the date on which the certificate was issued. So to me, that indicates that it's a year-long certificate and that it would require a code change. It's mandatory.
Okay, that's fine. My overarching point here is I want the folks following the rules having the permits and the folks not following the rules not having the permits. So does NDOT have any other kind of suggestions? Like, is there an enforcement, like checkups on the new OPVH permit holders after, a couple months, something like that? Is there any kind of way we can make sure these folks are doing what they're supposed to do?
Well, we don't have a mechanism of GPS or anything to put in their vehicles to find. The only time that would ever happen is if a police officer pulled them over for something or something of that nature, because they're generally point-to-point rides. So we wouldn't have any kind of mechanism by which to check them, so to speak.
Are there many complaints that have come in on Uber
No, sir.
and Lyft?
We don't.
Uber Black?
Uber Black. We seldom ever get a complaint on Uber Black.
And I mean, maybe it's they've stopped for 5 or 10 seconds in a lane of travel to drop somebody off at the front door to a bar. Maybe. But not been ticketed because it happened so quickly.
But in the future, when we move to the managed lanes in downtown, it will be caught on camera and they will receive a fee for utilizing a travel lane. Because we are going to improve the amount of space that is actually available.
And that would be true for all Ubers and Lyfts and rideshare vehicles?
Yes,
Because we don't, I think the challenge is, there's the vast majority of them we don't permit or license. Correct. That's just, and as I understand it, we only permit Uber Black because Uber requires it, not because we have.
That is correct. Uber requires them to. We don't know really why, but we suspect it's because of insurance.
Because of insurance. But the truth is, if we tried to severely cut the number of permits we gave, Uber could simply say, you no longer have to get a permit to drive Black.
That's in. You go to a lot of other cities and states. And the Uber Black is nowhere near the quality level that it is, at least in Nashville.
And Lyft Black doesn't require permitting.
That is correct.
So, we're kind of in a funny place where we could try to limit this, but then that might just backfire and we'd be...
I also just want to add a little bit of point of information, if I may, Mr. Chair. But last year, when we had about 120, and this information just I think would be a benefit to the commission, we had about 120 folks that did not renew. So we're looking at about 1/4 dropping off on an annual basis and not renewing. Again, I think that goes back to the market. So we're still kind of in that range, but we are at a tipping point. But there's some conversations that we need to be having at the state level as well.
Yeah. And I guess just to be fair, we need to acknowledge that some of these folks are actually limo services. They are not Uber. They're not, they're independent or they're doing whatever.
We don't have a whole lot of limos anymore, but
Okay.
technically, yes, it could be either or.
Commissioner Westlake makes a good point, though. At least these folks are being reviewed. They're being checked out before permits given to them versus the unknown number of other Ubers and Lyfts that are running around.
I don't know if any of your comments are relative to some of the emails that we've received recently, but the emails about these folks that want to organize, where they're asking us to help with things like the amount of revenue that they can receive. We can't do anything about it. That's between them and their contractor, between them and Uber and them and Lyft. We have no say whatsoever in the fee split that they have with the technology company and the technology platform they use.
Yeah.
I appreciate the discussion very much, and with all that input, I'd like to move that we approve this consent agenda items with, and I'm not good at making this motion, so maybe Ms. Westlake is usually better at it. I don't know, she may want to I withdraw my motion and pitch it over to her to make this motion.
You're up.
Well, I will.
You're going to have to read all these names.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that.
I'll take notes so I can do it.
That's right. So I would move that we approve the new company applications for other passenger vehicles for hire for the following companies: Ascari Limo, PRBT Transportation LLC, Fabricar Executive Transportation LLC, P-Trans One Inc., High Country Transportation LLC, Zane Limo Luxury Services, Amy's Limo Services LLC, Adu Limo, Music City Car Service, ABM, Cam's Auto LLC, E-Lux Transport LLC, Ala D's Limo, Hala Madrid LLC, Gilgal LLC, Ivy Limo, and Aziza LLC. To continue, both Limo, SP Luxury LLC, Adam Limo LLC, CEA Luxury Transportation LLC, and UR Ride LLC.
All right, there's a motion on.
There's one more, Adam Limo LLC.
Oh, I missed Adam Limo. I apologize. Adam Limo LLC.
Thank you for catching that. All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. That's the one thing about being elected chairperson is I don't get to make motions or vote anymore. So, all right, next on our agenda, OPVH reapplication after failure to timely renew. Mr. Rooker.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This company just did not file their application on time in the year amount of time that they had to file it. Their application is in order, and staff recommends approval.
Is there a representative from Gaffey here? I guess they may have thought that they didn't need to be here tonight.
I think that's the case.
Is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the reapplication for Gaffney Enterprises LLC doing business as Judah Elite Transportation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next thing on the agenda, Mr. Rooker, is the OPVH request to change address for Apex Transportation Services.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Anytime a company comes in and wants to change the original application, it has to come before the commission for approval. Their application is in order, and staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
I'll give you a break, Commissioner
Thank
Westlake. Make a motion to request the change of address for the OPVH permit for Apex Transportation Services.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, Mr. Rooker, we're moving into the shared urban mobility devices. The presentation is first on the docket.
Yes, sir. Presentation to Douglas Spikes and a vote and approval. We'll let TD take this over at this point.
Mr. Sheffield.
So this will be a docked bike share RFQ that has now been published by Metro Procurement. This falls under your authority in Chapter 12.62 of Shared Urban Mobility Devices. It's been a long time coming, and B-Cycle previously operated as a docked bike share, but not under the authority of this commission. It came in at a separate time. Now, under this new RFQ, this would be under your authority, the same as Bird, Lyman, Spin, who are operating dockless. This would be a completely docked bike share. Megan Matson from NDOT, our Transportation Demand Manager, authored this RFQ, and she's here today to answer any questions the commission may have about this RFQ. It is under your authority, so we will need a vote for approval. You can also suggest any changes if you would like to the published RFQ that's out there now. There was a pre-offer meeting this week with interested parties that occurred with Daniel Drumright, and we've got his PowerPoint if you'd like to see it that he presented. And
And if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It was a recommendation by both legal and procurement that we release it in the marketplace before we brought it before y'all for fair competition. So that's why it was released in the marketplace. But we can make any amendments that this board feels is necessary.
And just from the PowerPoint you see up on your screen, the deadline to submit questions for anyone interested is September 30th, 2 p.m. Central. Deadline to submit offers, October 10th, 2024, and we certainly welcome all offers of dock bike share.
Do the commissioners have questions that they would like asked by the author of the RFQ or any other questions? Or anybody else? Does everybody understand what's being asked of us today?
I'll ask one question.
Yeah. I knew there'd be a bike question coming up.
No, it'll be an easy one, I promise. Okay. I understand there was some concern about what I might add. Is experience in Nashville an item that'll be considered as part of the scoring? You might want to say who you are, by the way.
Okay, well, push the thing. Talking here. Hi. Okay. Hi, I'm Megan Madsen. I am the Transportation Demand Management Program Manager and have been plugging away at this RFQ for the last 6 months. And so, Commissioner Rogers, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, I just want to know if, I'm sure experience in the industry is part of the scoring, but is experience specifically in Nashville part of the scoring? Does that make sense? I mean, will a company that's been operating in Nashville since 2012 get more points than a company that hasn't been operating? I guess that's basically my question.
So we did not include that in the evaluation. So we have the RFQ. We also have an evaluation that we're going to use internally, as well as a technical requirements point system. And so we did not put priority on organizations that have been operating historically in Nashville. But I will say we did have a pre-offer meeting this week, actually yesterday, and I was surprised to see that there was more than just one company on there. And so happy to share more information on that.
Well, obviously, I'd like that to be part of it. I don't have any specific recommendation for language, and I don't know if procurement would like that kind of thing. I don't really care, quite frankly.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Well, can I interrupt a second?
Sure.
Currently, the evaluation criteria and points is equipment and software, 20 points, technical approach, 20 points, connectivity improvements, expansion of services, 10 points, marketing, community engagement, public partnerships, 20 points, compliance, 20 points, and proposed fee structure, 10 points, right?
Correct.
What does proposed fee structure mean?
It's so if I may help.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There is a cost associated with checking out a bike share, very similar to what the scooters are. So we're asking them to provide us with what their fee structure would be, because we want to look at what's going to be the best value for our guests and for our residents, and as well as for our community that may be have a disadvantage. So we're looking for that and what they're going to propose. So that's what we're asking from every one of the companies that will be providing a proposal. As to your question, Mr. Rogers, I would say I'm not 100% sure if we can do that, but you certainly can put that on as a motion, and if we're allowed to do it, we will include it.
Okay.
Mr. Rogers, is there somewhere within this criteria that might fit?
Well, that's what I was looking at.
Community engagement, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Marketing, community engagement, public-private partnership, 20 points? It could be possibly a subtopic under there?
Yeah, because my point is a company, not just experience in Nashville, but experience in other cities.
Mr. Sheffley, is there any way to put this up on the board?
So it'll be very important that they have a very good marketing and engagement program, as well as showing the ability for partnership. They are going to have to go out and get some sponsorships to subsidize it, because Metro is not providing any subsidization whatsoever for the bike share program. So they're going to need to be able to show and reference that. So I think there will be an advantage for a company that's been operating in Nashville, because they're going to know who and what are already the players in this world.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to be doing the scoring, obviously, but if I was, that's something I'd pay attention to. And I'd probably give extra points, even if it doesn't say that in here. So my question is, I'd like it to say that, experience both in this market and in other markets. That's what I'd like to say.
If you can provide us with the motion and the commission agrees, we can certainly add that, as long as procurement and legal do not have an issue with it.
Yeah, of course.
Because I can't say yes or no.
That's what I figured.
What is the genesis of the RFQ? I remember that there was B-cycles in Shelby Park. There's some at the base of the pedestrian building. Why are we doing an RFQ?
If I may take that, Megan. Sorry. If I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So originally, B-Cycle was brought in under a grant that the health department received, and it was done under many administrations back. It was put in parks. It was put on the right of way. It was everywhere. However, in COVID, everything kind of went quiet because of COVID. Coming out of COVID, B-Cycle wanted to upgrade to Class A or Class 1 electric bicycles. The problem is that parks did not want the electric bikes, so we had to move them out of the right of way. When that was done, it came to realize there really was no set contract that even allowed them to perform. So we gave them actually a permit to operate within the right of way. It is now time where we need to start expanding and growing the program to make it successful. Otherwise, it will fail. And it is a very important element of an active transportation system. And so we have partnered with parks and with health and with police and everybody in putting together this RFP so that we could have a cohesive program that worked for everybody in the city, in the county as well. And so that's why the RFP has been put together, so there's an actual contract and we can look at the program expanding and being successful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
How many companies are interested in bidding on it?
Just two.
We saw at least 3 in the pre-offer meeting.
Yeah.
If I could point something out, the first bill, as you may remember, in fact, it was before I was on this commission, the first bill to regulate scooters was, I think, in 2018, dropped by Jeremy Elrod. The definition that's still in the law included B-cycle. Then, no one noticed except, I think, Billy and I. And, of course, I wasn't going to mention it because I figured Metro would screw it up. But at some point in the recent past, we have figured out that B-cycle, technically, they're under our jurisdiction right now. Aren't they? Am I correct?
I would agree with Commissioner Rogers. Under 1262 of the Metro Code, the definition of a shared urban mobility device, a short-term rental point-to-point, whether docked or dockless, whether a scooter or an e-bike, it does fall under your authority. And so after this RFQ, the docked bike share in Nashville will be under the authority of this commission.
Could I ask who, I don't know if you could tell me, what departments will be represented on the evaluation committee other than yours? Any?
We haven't selected it yet.
But Mr. Chair, if I may, we have not selected it, but we would be looking, of course, of having a park representative. We would want to have the health department part of it. Our active transportation manager would be part of it. Megan will definitely be on it. So we want to have a very wide representation on the evaluation committee.
And I've been contacted in the past, and you have too, probably, by WeGo. So I would suggest that they have somebody on the team.
Yes, most definitely, because we actually had worked out a program with them. That's where we allowed some additional scooters to come in to serve in that first and last mile as part of WeGo, and so we still allow that.
And then this company would receive a permit from which department?
It would be from our department, but it would be under the management of this commission.
They would receive a contract from your department and a permit, and then be under our authority, rules and regulations.
Yes, sir.
And Director Alarcon, you don't have to ask my permission, please.
I was just gonna make a motion for that.
I think I made it very clear that I invite input.
Thank you, sir.
during
I
our
appreciate
hearings,
that.
please. Mr. Rogers, do you want to make a motion?
Yeah.
About amending the RFQ?
This will not be particularly well worded, but I would like to add to whatever the relevant section is, and you can decide that, is that consideration of relevant experience in Nashville and in other cities be considered as part of the scoring. Is that appropriate?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Chair,
Whoop, whoop, whoop,
thank you. Before you vote, I'm trying to do some quick research on this, and there may be an issue with utilizing a business location as part of the scoring, but I don't have a firm answer yet, so if maybe you could hold off on the amendment, because I don't want to do anything I don't want you to vote on anything that's not legal to do.
Well, I think
Oh,
initially.
or T.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think the chair was about to say it, that the motion can be, we'll include it if it's legal. I believe Director Alarcon.
Yes. If it was legally allowed, and I would just ask if we could add that little bit of it, and then we would definitely provide that back to this commission if it was allowed or not allowed.
And I think everybody understands Commissioner Rogers' spirit of his motion, looking at the experience that companies had, not necessarily their location.
Surely it can be asked, if it can't be specific to Nashville, surely relevant experience. I mean, I know it's been in other RFPs.
Well, we would want to know whether they've had violations or complaints. And, yeah.
Well, I want to know if they've operated a docked bike share system.
Yeah.
Because one of the interested parties, as far as I know, has not.
We're reaching out to the attorney who represents procurement to ask those questions.
And also, if I might just add, I did have a conversation with procurement yesterday in reference to the RFP, and that if somebody was not available at the pre-meeting, would they still be able to submit an RFQ to us? And the answer is yes. So even if they weren't at the pre-approval meeting that we held earlier in the week, they would still be able. So even though we had 3 representatives, we could get a lot more proposals in. There are many more companies out there other than what was just at the pre-approval.
No, there aren't. As far as I know, there are only 2 companies in this country that are operating docked bike share. There are a number of companies operating dockless bike share.
Yes.
And I'm not sure the other company besides B-Cycle has just dropped all their dockless systems. So that's all they do. And they're a very large company. They do New York, Chicago, et cetera. Hopefully, I'll be quite frank, I hope they don't have any interest in Nashville. But that's, as far as I know, the only other company besides B-Cycle. And just for your information, B-Cycle was just sold.
Yes, I do know that. I was just going to mention that, so I'm very familiar with that.
And I don't know much about the company that bought them. What I've heard is pretty good, so we'll just have to see. But they're going to operate as B-Cycle, it's my understanding.
So again, we will actually reach out and get that answer if that motion should pass, and we will relay that back at the next meeting, whether we were able to add it or not.
All right, Commissioner Rogers, is your motion still on the table?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries to, shall I say, explore the possibility of adding, whether we can put in there some consideration of experience in this operation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that what we just voted on?
Yeah. I'm just trying to clarify that motion that just.
Sure. Yeah, and subject to whether or not it's legally allowed. Yeah.
And I would just ask, since you've been working on this for 6 months and we haven't, is there anything that you would like added in this, or you don't see that is part of what this RFQ should be? Do you have any thoughts on since we're here to talk about it?
I feel pretty good about it, honestly. And so, we looked at the city of Denver's RFP. And if you've ever been to Denver, they have a great micromobility program.
But it's dockless.
But it is dockless, true. But it was intended to be docked and dockless.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to hear about docked and dockless systems in other cities, I can go on all afternoon.
But I feel good about
But Denver and Seattle, for instance, have only dockless systems. Places like Indianapolis, Minneapolis had only docked systems. Other cities like Frisco and D.C. have both. So it's done in different ways all around the country, all around the world, for that matter.
And I have to agree with that. We do feel that it's important to have both docking as well as also dockless. We have found in the past, and experience has also taught me, there's some great partnerships that can happen with the private community of also buying into the docking stations and providing that as a transportation mean for their residents, for their commercial needs and everything. So I think there's some great opportunities to have as much active transportation, micromobility as possible, and not limit it to just one type of program. So we're very favorable to a docking program as well as a dockless program. But the dockless program, I think, has to, again, it requires that we have dedicated space for that to go, so we don't have them everywhere, and that's part of Connect Downtown. That's where we're starting, but we are looking at how we would expand that dockless to require that they be put in a place that is safe for the entire community and not create a safety hazard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I know you've had your hands in this for a long time, so I want to make sure that this includes everything that you wanted in it. Yeah. Thank you.
And I would just like to go on record, if I may, and thank Megan, because this has been quite a journey, trying to get this corrected where we were doing it in the right way, under the right envelope, and try not to screw it up, as Mr. Rogers had mentioned. We were trying to get it fixed correctly.
That was in the past. That was 5 or 6. We can blame Jeremy for that. He's no longer on council. No, and for once I will agree. Megan and her team have done a really good job. In fact, I think they're getting paid by the word. So much. If I'd written it, it'd have been a lot shorter, but that's fine.
Mr. Rooker, it does say that this is on the docket or on the agenda today for a vote for approval. Do we need to do a motion of either approving or not approving the RFQ 384391?
Yes, Chair, you do.
All right.
And I'll make a motion that we approve the request for proposal.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes for approval of the RFQ 38391. Next on our agenda is a public hearing regarding Nashville Yards geofencing request in TLC Rules and Procedure Section 905M. We are getting into geofencing now?
Chair, we would like to have this deferred indefinitely. There's still a lot of work we need to do on this and some things we have to check before we can do it. Nashville Yards has requested this be on the agenda for the last 3 months. We have met with them. Actually, TD and I did a tour of Nashville Yards. So we're trying to get some things fixed with them and before we can even present this. So we just need it continued indefinitely.
All right.
Could I make a comment?
Go ahead.
I have no idea exactly what they want, but I'm probably against it. But if you could suggest to them that they sit down with you and people like Megan and Matt and Anna and maybe walk back Nashville and hell, even me, and see if we couldn't work something out without, making them. I'm going to oppose geofencing anybody separately. I mean, we do Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's a little different. And so, anyway, that's my suggestion.
Do our new commissioners understand about what the geofencing issue is?
Yes, I do know what the geofencing issue is. I think with respect to Nashville Yards, there's an issue of private property.
It is private property, yes, ma'am.
And I don't have any problem with geofencing with respect to private property. Mr. Rogers and I may disagree, so.
Where do you stop?
Is it private property though?
Where the line of the property ends.
Okay, then why aren't they responsible for their own property?
They are.
They are.
Then why should we help them?
It's just.
And if the hamburger shop down the street from me, which has 10 parking places, are we going to geofence them at their request?
Well, currently, there's a request to defer the geofencing until, and I think Commissioner Rogers has got a good point that, Mr. Rooker, you might want to bring as many people in to see if we can get this thing done.
Well, I can say this, there's a lot of conversations. One of the problems is if we geofence their property, it's going to probably geofence 10th Avenue, which runs under their property. So there are just a lot of things that we've got to look at.
And we can't geofence public property.
No, sir. No, sir.
There are also easements over their private property that makes it public. No, just easement. It's an easement for right of way. So they have essentially, I don't know, it's a 10-acre site where they cut roads through and have parking garages below. It's more than a road, or yeah, that's fair.
So
it has pavers. It has enhanced a topping slab, if you will, right?
On the right of way or their property?
It's private property that has easements for the public to travel across. So think about the Skirmahorn Symphony Center, and the area in front of the Symphony Center has bollards and it has enhanced. That's public property that has bollards that the Symphony kind of has some influence over. They have a similar area of influence, I think. But I do think that every single property owner in Davidson County would love to be able to geofence from their private property. And I can talk about every parking garage in the downtown core does not want scooters pulling into the garages. And there's not a good way to geofence because of the cellular communications and the way buildings are set up to geofence a scooter pulling into an underground garage, as an example.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to defer until such a time as the staff is prepared to
I
bring this
welcome
back
such
up.
a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
All right, now, moving on, Mr. Rooker, review request to operate Class 2 e-bikes in TLC Rules and Procedures, Section 909B.
This is going to be handled by TD. He's got all the information you need.
Mr. Scheffler?
Thank you. In your rule, section 909B, the e-bikes that operate in Nashville are limited to Class 1. Class 1 e-bikes cannot exceed 20 miles per hour, and they can have a pedal assist. Class 2 e-bikes, by state law, are allowed to have a throttle. This is to begin the movement of the wheels on the pedal assist without pedaling. So Lime has proposed bringing Class 2 e-bikes to Nashville in their fleet, and these are bikes that we had an opportunity to go out and test ride. What the implication would be is the bikes would travel at the exact same speed. They would simply be able to begin operating without a pedal. So I have some pictures that I took on the day that I had the opportunity to ride this. This would require a rule change, but today we did not place it on your agenda as a public hearing. We wanted to have an informational session. Alex Molina from Lime is here today to talk about what they're doing with their technology and why they want to bring it to Nashville. And so I would invite him to come up and answer any questions you have. And then, of course, I'm available to talk about my experience riding these bikes as well. And I believe Commissioner Rogers also had an opportunity to test ride them. And as I pull this up, what you can see is just here this go button on the right. If you just push that down the same way you would operate a scooter, the bicycle itself begins to roll. They will have these geofenced or limited to 15 miles per hour, the same as the scooters. So there would be no implication on any difference of speed, just an opportunity for a rider to begin without pedaling. And this is Alex Molina.
Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Alex Molina, and I serve as operations manager here in Nashville for Lime. We appreciate the consideration here for this agenda item and the next one. I will give you some information, as TD said I could do, about the pedal assist on the Gen 4 bikes. They do engage instantly, and they support riders are up to 20 miles per hour. The throttle function will similarly engage the electric motor up to 20 miles per hour, and that matches the SMUD rules. We are currently operating 125 e-bikes in Nashville, and we reached this deployment level in June per requests. And the e-bikes have been very successful. We've seen nearly 15,000 rides since the first bikes were deployed in December of 2022. If there are any other questions that I may be able to answer.
What's the public need for the Class 2 e-bike?
It's a little easier to operate, and I will say that folks that have some mobility issues, those of us in the disability group, would be able to operate these much more easier than the pedal assist bikes.
Is there a price difference?
No.
If the throttle and the non-throttle, it's
ma'am.
the same price?
Same price. You said 20 miles an hour. That's the state law. We limit all of them to 15, correct? Including these.
That's correct.
Okay. And just for your information, I rode the bike. TD and I did. It's just a bike. It's just an e-bike, like thousands of other Class 2 e-bikes. I mean, this essentially makes it a sit-down scooter. You know, there's really no difference in terms of operation. And it doesn't, let me make sure, Alex, it does not turn off the pedal assist. You don't have to use the throttle. Correct. That is correct. And I might just point out that old people with bad knees like the throttle because you can get started and then you pedal. And I cannot imagine anybody renting a bike, they're not going to pedal at least some of the time, but who knows. But again, it's basically operates like the scooters do.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really good point in terms of folks who are older and folks with disabilities, and I think it's a really good accommodation.
I thought about my mother as I rode them, who has been a bike rider her whole life, not quite as nimble as she used to be, and the trouble she has in beginning to ride a bike is in starting the pedaling. So to be able to hop on the seat, hit the throttle to get moving, and then to continue to bike from there would be great for my mom.
So my question is, if we were to amend our rule to allow Class 2 e-bikes, are you going to bring Class 2 e-bikes in to replace some of the Class 1s, or are you going to be asking us in the next agenda item to allow you to increase your fleet?
The beauty of our operations is that we can retrofit throttles on the current fleet of bikes.
So the answer to my question is you're just going to change some of the Class 1s into Class 2s?
That's correct.
How many do you anticipate doing that to?
All of them, if we could.
All of them?
Mm-hmm. Again, like Commissioner Rogers had stated, you can still pedal the bikes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is no need to use the throttle.
Okay, we talked about the number 40, I believe, correct? When we rode them, and was that how many they had now?
Mm-hmm.
I believe they've gone ahead and retrofitted some bikes with the anticipation that if this rule passes, that they'll be ready to go here in Nashville. Those throttle assists are currently turned off because without the ability to use a throttle, it's just a Class 1. I'm not sure their plans on how many they would bring with the rule change, but I do believe you have about 40 now that could be ready to go with a rule change.
That is correct.
So this is an example of a Class 2 e-bike. If we agree to the request, what are some other examples of Class 2 e-bikes that we might also be approving that don't look like this? Or do they all look like this?
Really, the only difference in the state law between Class 1 and Class 2 is the ability to throttle. Mm-hmm. So there's no additional implications here.
Thank you.
And you've already rolled these out in other cities, right? I know they're in Seattle.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Have you talked to your people there about any experiences, good or bad?
As far as?
Anything in terms of the use?
Well, as a matter of fact, after testing these throttles in programs across the country, we get a 30% increase in ridership.
Over the...
in higher utilization over the pedal assist only bikes.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Class 2 doesn't have to have pedals, it can have pegs.
No, it has to have pedals that will propel it forward.
Mm-hmm. Class 2 does. Class 3 just has pegs.
No, all three classes of e-bikes basically have to be bicycles. If they don't have pedals that propel it forward, I think that's the exact language, then they're not legally considered an e-bike.
It's a dirt bike with pegs.
That's not an e-bike.
Right, I'm just asking the question. Dirt bike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, what you're talking about. Yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, there's all sorts of electric vehicles now, I'm sure you know. But the specific legal definitions of e-bikes is pretty clear.
The ones that have the pegs aren't supposed to be operating on the streets.
Nope. Oh, on the streets. Well, I don't know about the streets, but
Well, these can only
probably supposed to be licensed.
Yeah, these can only operate on the streets.
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying, oh, the streets, these Class 2 can only operate on the streets. They can't operate other places.
You mean like greenways?
Oh, the greenway, they can operate on
Oh,
the
yeah, they can. Yeah. State law says a Class 1 and a Class 2 e-bike can be on a greenway. We've been through that. You want to hear the history of that?
No. I'm going to take charge here in a moment and say we're not going to open that wound. You won.
I know.
Okay.
So, is there specific language that we would propose to?
We can bring that back to
Section
y'all.
90.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
If y'all are comfortable with this, we'll bring you back for a vote and approval at the next commission meeting, so we can move it forward.
I think it'd be good to see the language.
Yes.
Thank you.
The language change will be rather simple. 909B says Class 1, and then we would say or 2.
Okay. Thanks for that information.
Is there a consensus that we'd like to see that on the next month's agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then we're going to move on to the next request by Lime for 50 scooter fleet increase per TCL rules and procedures, section 913. Mr. Rooker, who's handling that one?
The staff's going to have to just not recommend this. We're saturated with scooters downtown, and it's becoming an issue. We are getting corrals put in, so I think there's going to be 30 corrals put in by end of October. Is that correct, Director?
Well, actually, if I may, there's totally 145 that are going to be built and added, and some of them have already been built and added. The goal is to have 45 actually installed by the end of October, and then we'll continue banging the rest out. Our goal is to try to get them all in by the end of the year, because we're anxious to start on the next phase of well, it's part of phase 1, but the next step would actually be the expansion of the loading zone with the management of the curb. So our goal is to have all the curb corrals actually built and done and finalized. So at that time, we would be coming back with y'all maybe for consideration, but we'd want to do a little bit of evaluation. We also want to work on some rule changes as well on how we can better manage, because we are having some issues of making sure that we want to make sure that things are, one, put in the corral and taken out of the corral, and two, there are some rule requirements that we just need to hone in and make sure that our current vendors are actually meeting or exceeding.
So it might be appropriate just to defer this for now until such a time as
yes,
those other things are in place?
Defer, our goal would be, I think we're asking you to not support it, because at a later date we may come back and be asking for more scooters or more bikes or whatever it is. But right now we're just overwhelmed with scooters. We handle tremendous number of complaints that come in on a daily basis. It's almost like I have to hire a full-time administrative person just to handle the number of complaints that come in. So we would just hope that you would just not accept this as a request.
Can I speak? Go ahead, sir. Well, number one, Ricky says we're saturated. What's the definition of saturated? If there are, according to the letter from the partnership, there are thousands of these complaints. If there are this many complaints, it's our job to regulate these companies. And if they're violating our rules, especially thousands of times, they need to be in here for enforcement.
And I think we're heading in that direction. Like all, we try to do follow the 3-strike rule with everybody, where the first is actually a verbal, the second is a written, and the third time we're bringing it to you as a discipline. So just to kind of share some of the complaints that we have been receiving and that we're constantly going is one, it taking more than 2 hours to put them in the appropriate place or remove them from a place that's creating a public safety issue. Two, of course, we still get complaints of younger folks on it than what they're supposed to be. And we do feel that creating the corrals and some of the mobility spaces for the scooters and the bikes to run are going to help clean that up. But we are working through that. We are having the conversations with the vendor. We would just ask that not any more be added until we at least have the street organized to be able to better manage everything.
So you said there's three strikes you're out, but they've never been here, so that nobody's got the 3 strikes yet.
Well, the first strike is actually, we provide a verbal conversation, which is what staff does, and they document that conversation the date it happens. The second one is a letter that will be sent by staff that says, hey, you continue to violate this. The third one is actually where we would be bringing them before y'all for a discipline because they have not. So you would hear about it on the third strike anyway.
And these companies have been operating for 5-6 years, and I don't, Mr. Chairman, correct me, I do not remember any enforcement hearing against these companies. And I can assure you, I'm willing to whack them if they're violating the rules, but you haven't brought them here.
I'm not arguing that, but again, we have been getting everything organized so that we can bring things before you.
They've been operating for years, before you were here.
Yes, sir. And I can't do anything about
it. You've been here for over 2 years.
And I am trying to get everything organized so we can appropriately bring it before you. And this has been a moving target. Connect Downtown was a study that we needed to do first.
That's, yeah.
Yep, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
so we needed to do that study to understand where the challenges and the demands were. But we continue to get complaints. We continue to have them file in the hub. Staff is going through the 3-strike route to be fair and even to everybody. And then if we continue with the disciplinary problems, we will actually be bringing that before you.
Okay, but I have a real problem making decisions based upon alleged activities, which I don't doubt have occurred, but it's our job to regulate them. And I would argue this is a separate issue from enforcement.
So in that case, I would, again, we are not supportive of this request, and the main reason we are not supportive is we do not have the infrastructure in place. So if you want to follow that avenue, I do not have the infrastructure in place to properly put these so that they're not left on sidewalks, blocking people from walking, or in the travel way. So I would ask that you allow us to properly get the infrastructure in place before we add any more additional micromobilities to the infrastructure.
How long have you been in this city?
Pardon?
You've been here for over 2 years.
Yes, sir.
And that study held up everything. And I'm quite frankly tired of being held up. And if these companies are violating our rules, bring them in here.
Yes, sir.
I don't know anything about 3 strikes, 10 strikes, or whatever. I do not like making decisions. I thought we had a mayor that was friendly to multimodality and micromobility.
We are, sir.
Okay, so does he support your position?
At this time, until we get the infrastructure in place for public safety reasons, we are asking that you not take this request.
Freddie O'Connell says no more.
I have not spoken to the mayor personally. This is a staff recommendation.
Right.
And we are recommending that you please not support this request because we do not have the safe infrastructure in place for public safety issues.
And we haven't had it in place for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. I've heard those kind of complaints as long as I've been involved in advocacy. It's never going to be exactly right. I'm sorry. You know, I don't have to tell you we've got lousy infrastructure, and I'm all for corrals, sort of. And so I don't see that as being an issue, and it hasn't been as long as we've been doing this. So how many bikes do you have right now?
We have 125.
Which is what we require you to have. We permit you to have scooters. We require you to have bikes. So if we give you 50 more scooters, I'm in favor of requiring you to have 25 more bikes. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
It may not be okay with any other commissioners, but I'm going to make that motion. And the staff and Metro Legal are here to recommend to us. And I don't agree with Mr. Winters, but we're here to make our own decisions. And I'll talk some more. I'll keep it short. I have spent at least 3 years trying to get more bicycles. I'm not crazy about scooters, but they make money on scooters, and they claim they don't make any money on bikes. I'm not sure that's true. But the bikes cost more. They're more difficult to operate. I'm sure it costs them more. And I want bikes. So I'm willing to increase the number of scooters in order to get more bikes. That's the bottom line, and I've been saying that for 3 years. So that's where I'm at.
What's the utilization rate on the bikes that you've had brought in since June?
Since June, we've had a, let me see.
Thank you.
Close to 1. It's about 0.7 since June. I will say that the introduction of throttles is going to increase that.
Okay.
How does it compare? You're getting what, TD? They're getting about 2.5 rides a day on scooters?
Put the utilization up on the board there.
Oh,
Your rule in section 913 relies on utilization to make a request.
Right.
So this request is on your agenda because they qualify to make the request.
Under the
though
rule
it
that
does.
we approved. Right, so,
What is the
so they have
threshold?
met the requirement that we put into our rules, correct?
We're asking.
Okay.
What is the threshold for that to be able to make the request?
It is 2.5 rides per scooter per day in order to make a request for a fleet increase of no more than 50 scooters. It's worth noting that back in June, Lime made this same request and was approved. Those scooters were conditionally approved to be outside of downtown and midtown. Lime is the only of the 3 companies who qualified to make this request. Their utilization is quite high here.
Yeah.
Can you?
I would disagree with the utilization being quite high. If you've got 2 rides per day where that vehicle is sitting and taking up the public right-of-way for 12 or 14 or 16 hours, and it has 2 5 or 10-minute rides, we have way too many. They're not being utilized all that much. And I see them parked, strewn, left behind, all over downtown, let alone midtown and other parts of town.
Dangling over the river. How many Hub Nashville complaints are logged against the scooters?
We received quite a lot of complaints.
Could you quantify that?
I wouldn't know how many. So
Couldn't give
tens
yeah.
per day.
Don't think you could give you a number, but we do get a lot of them. And most of the complaints are about them being on the sidewalk, blocking ADA access to things, and that's where we get most of our complaints.
And I understand that that the company is required to move those within a certain amount of time.
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
And did someone say that they are not getting moved in that time?
I can't really specifically speak to, most of the companies are very responsive to us when we ask them to do things. So, I mean, I couldn't say that they're hitting that 2 hour band exactly, but if we call them and ask them to move something, they generally go do it.
Thank you.
TD can probably add
I
to that.
regularly receive timely communication from the companies on rebalancing requests. The number of complaints we get doesn't also necessarily correlate with a violation. We check the complaints to ensure there are violations before we send for rebalancing.
To that point, and to Commissioner Rogers' questions in the 3 strikes, we have the hub complaints. You're getting complaints. What does it take to be actionable? And I apologize that as a new person to the committee, what's it take? Do we need a complaint like we've had from Mr. Rosenblatt and Mr. Winters? Like, what gets us over the hump here?
Great question.
Sure. A scooter blocking ingress and egress to a sidewalk, a scooter parked on a sidewalk less than 8 feet wide, a scooter's tipped over. Often these are...
Sure. I understand that those would be the violations, but how to get to an actionable place where we have the authority or the opportunity to make some sort of take some sort of action, where do you go from the hub, the 10s a day, to the 3 strikes? Where do we get from there to here to consider those?
Without the requisite number of corrals out to offer that type of parking, the scooters inevitably will be parked on the sidewalks. And so currently there are, in your rules, limitations on when you can park on a sidewalk, to a sidewalk being greater than 8 feet wide, and even then not blocking access to that sidewalk. And so given the number of scooters we have out, there are violations constantly of this rule.
I think if I may clarify, because I understand your question. Procedurally, we have thousands of complaints and we're not able to do anything about it. What's happening here?
Well, too, we have to remember that the companies themselves are not leaving these vehicles on sidewalks and things. So
They actually are, and I watch them stage every morning with their contractors, and the contractors put them in the wrong place. That is not factually accurate.
Okay, well,
in my opinion.
Okay, it may not be factually accurate, and they may be doing that, and that's something we can address with the companies. But when the corrals go in, they'll be able to put them in the corrals. They'll be in the right places. But the people that stop and leave them on, that's what I was referring to, is people that ride them. They put them all over the place, and they're everywhere all the time. When we get a complaint, we send the company to go and to move them and to relocate those in an appropriate place. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ricky. If I can answer the question, which is on the procedure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So what staff will do is we get a complaint in. They will then go and verify the complaint. They typically will do it two ways. One is they will verify the complaint and who we received it from, and then they will actually kind of radio that out, have staff go and check and see if it's still there. If it is still there, they will then contact the company. If the company moves it in the 2 hours, the complaint has been handled. Okay? So that's one thing. If it's not moved in 2 hours, it's another call. That's your strike one. Okay? If we get the same complaint, let's say later on in the day or the next day, they will then do the same process. If it comes to it where it's not moved into 2 hours, that's complaint number 2, and a letter should be written and sent to the company that they're in violation of the 2-hour rule and they're not moving it. And then complaint number 3, whenever it comes in, however it is, if it's not cleaned up and done in the 2 hours, then staff should be bringing that before you as a disciplinary action. Now, staff is, in fairness, has been lenient because we haven't really had the space in which the scooters can go. So we're trying to get that organized. So I would say they've been a little bit more lenient about the placement, and you're absolutely correct, Mr. Hayes. They are not being put in the appropriate place, and that's why we're pushing really hard to get the scooter corrals done. We were originally going to contract this out and have a contractor do it. We can't get a contractor to start until next year. So we've brought this in-house, and we have staff doing it in-house so that we can get it done, understanding that staff is anxiously waiting so we can hold them more accountable to the rules and regulations, but there has been some leniency put into place because we have not had the infrastructure in place. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that said, we are going to take a 10-minute break and come back on this same agenda item. Call us back to order here. Now, before we continue much further, I think Commissioner Rogers put a motion on the table. Is that still on the table, Commissioner Rogers?
Let me restate it. So
All right.
I know what I'm motioning. I move that we approve 50 additional scooters for Lime to be used outside of downtown. Okay? Like we did the last 50. So we permit them to have 50 more scooters, and we require them to have 25 more bikes. Why did I say 24? Okay, that's my motion. And that would be a total of 150 bikes.
And I think the response from Lions representative was, I would welcome that.
Sure, and I would like to reiterate that we would bring at a ratio of 1 to 4 bikes for the 50 scooters, and as Commissioner Rogers had stated, those scooters would go outside of the downtown area, and we could provide better coverage in that respect and provide more scooters for those folks outside of the downtown area. I also wanted to add the 2.7 TVD. That is an average over the entire fleet, and a lot of that TVD, that trips per vehicle per day, does occur when the scooters are downtown. We considerably more trips downtown.
What did you mean by 1 to 4? Does that mean that 1 bike for every 4 scooters? Or are you understanding that his motion is
right
1 for 2?
Yeah, we would be willing to put more bikes out if needed. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion fails. All right, is there any further discussion about the request by Lime for 50 scooter fleet increase? All right. I don't believe we need a motion or anything on that. It's a request before us, so. All right. Thank you, sir, for your time here today. Appreciate your patience. Mr. Rooker, the next thing on our agenda is the pedal vehicles continued discussion, but I think you brought to my attention,
Well,
I guess he's gone again.
Mr. Michael's here, and now Mr. Wallen was here, but now he appears not to be in the room. So.
All right, we'll move on to the pedal vehicle discussion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rooker.
Yes, sir. This is a continued discussion of the TLC rules and procedures. Section 702 as relates to a public hearing for the pedal carriages to be able to operate between 4 and 6 on approved routes by me and by NDOT engineering. This is held over from an August meeting.
So this essentially would give pedal carriages equity with our rules relative to
That
ETVs.
is correct. And we had the public hearing in August, so this is just continued discussion. This is not reopening the public hearing.
Got it. I mean, I'll just say that equity makes some sense to me.
Mr. Rooker, has there been any new information you've received since the August meeting that would be pertinent to this?
No, ma'am. The only thing I can say is I know there's only really one company that's pursuing this. The other companies have not mentioned it. And as a matter of fact, 2 of them told me they would not be presenting any kind of routes.
And how many vehicles would this affect?
How many vehicles do they have, TD?
4 pedal carriage companies with 26 permits.
That is correct. So, but with 2 of them not specific to, not even going to submit routes, we'd have difficulty coming up with that's a specific number. I think this company, Sprocket Rocket, how many permits do you have?
Well, just to correct, Pedal Tavern and Sprocket are both requesting this, and it's not just one.
Okay. Well, there's 2 companies that are, 2 companies that aren't. Okay.
The larger companies. So we have, I have 9, they have 12, and the other companies is.
Come on up to the mic, please. And again, just state your name and then answer his questions.
Emmett Martin with Rocket Rocket. I have 9 permits. Pedal Tavern has, I think, 12. The other companies have, I think, 2 each. So we're a larger company. We also don't need to operate every single vehicle during that time.
And you recognize that whatever route that you would want to operate on between 4 and 6 has to be approved by NDOT and by the TLC director.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this also includes pedicabs as well.
Yes, pedicabs are included in this proposal because they're under the same ordinance.
And how many vehicles is that?
I believe it's 31. 4 companies, 31.
4 companies, 30. There we go.
Jungle Jim's Pedicabs, who's not operating this year, our company, Nashville Bike Cab, and
31. Yep, 4 companies with 31.
So by my math, this would be an additional 57 potential vehicles on the roads between 4 and 6?
That is correct. On approved routes. They're not just, they couldn't
Well-
just be wherever they wanted to be.
I just want to say, as she stated, they're basically a taxi version. So it's not apples to apples.
I mean, the way we permit it, it's under the same umbrella, so.
But
If
I
you're gonna
think
speak,
it's
please
fair to
come up
be,
to the
it's
microphone.
fair to have the understanding that we're not talking about the same.
They are very different vehicles.
I understand that.
They're
but
just
they're
under
in
the same
class.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
If I could ask a question of legal, can we treat, since they're under the same ordinance, can we treat them differently in the rules? Could we approve it for pedicabs but not for pedal tap?
Well, there
Hold
was.
on, his questions
I'm
to
not
Metro
asking
Legal,
you.
please.
I'm so sorry. I just need a minute to look up the rule, please. Thank you.
Well, I'm talking about the ordinance. I mean, how would the ordinance guide our rules, I guess?
Under the ordinance, pedal carriage means a non-motorized bicycle with 4 or more wheels operated by 1 or more persons for the purpose of or capable of transporting additional passengers and seats or on a platform made for a part of or otherwise attached to the pedal carriage as defined by Tennessee Code annotated 5526-101. For purposes of this ordinance, pedal carriage does not include a pedicab as defined herein. And then a pedicab means any unibody, non-motorized bicycle with 3 wheels operated by 1 person, including but not limited to rickshaws, for the purpose of or capable of transporting additional passengers and seats as defined by Tennessee Code annotated 5526-101. Duly licensed to operate as such by the MTLC that is regularly engaged in the business of carrying passengers for hire, donation, gratuity, or any other form of remuneration. And then it goes on. So as far as changing the routes are set forth in the rule that TLC has proposed to be amended. So pedal cabs and pedal carriages and pedicabs are not the same thing.
Right.
So
my question was, can we fashion the rules to treat them differently?
yes, I think you could.
Okay.
Go ahead, TD.
In fact, we already do so in entertainment transportation for seated sightseeing versus the traditional party vehicle.
Wow. Yeah.
Those are under the same ordinance and treated differently in your rules.
Yeah, my purpose wasn't to say they couldn't be treated different. Just to let you know they're under the same ordinance.
Same ordinance, right.
Thank you.
And I think it's true. I mean, the pedicabs are more like taxis, right? Is that a true statement? And the pedal taverns are more like an entertainment vehicle. So I think they should be treated differently.
I would just add, though, that it would have to, if they're being treated differently, it would have to be based on like data and engineering expertise.
Why?
Because
You mean there needs to be a rational basis for
Correct.
treating them?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe there is data in the Connect study, actually, that they can see how large the vehicle is, and they can't see like specifically what the vehicle is, but can't you tell the difference in that study by looking at the size?
Also, routes for the Connect study, when it was being conducted, were specific routes for pedal carriages that did not include the pedicabs during that time. So we were treated and separated from those exclusions or defined routes because we were different. Also, it had been approved years ago that we are also partially motorized up to the regular speed limit. So we are a lot more mobile during the 4 to 6. Like I said, the heavy traffic areas are not great business for us in general, so we actually shy away from Broadway and heavy traffic in order to conduct business and get people away from Broadway and to where they're going.
If I may just remind the commission, the study, the Connect Downtown study, looked at slow-moving vehicles. It could not distinguish the difference between a pedal tavern, a pedicab, or ETV, or sightseeing. It was all about slow-moving vehicles. And what came out of the recommendation from the data that was collected in Connect Downtown was that slow-moving vehicles not be allowed to operate between 4 and 6. We since came back with a rule for ETVs and sightseeing that said they can operate between 4 and 6 on a fixed route that is approved by Ricky as the director over the TLC and also through our chief engineer. And so we are just trying to equalize the playing field and requesting that a rule also be made that the pedal taverns as well as the pedicabs can operate during the hour of 4 and 6, but it would be a fixed route that is actually approved by the director of TLC and as well as the chief engineer to make sure that we are not restricting the traffic flow in the downtown core. Thank you.
Can I also add, golf carts are able to operate from 4 to 6, and they are a very similar transportation service. And we've been following this rule for almost 10 years, as golf carts have not been restricted during those times. They are also a tour business and do not have defined routes, if I'm correct.
You don't have any defined routes, right?
No.
Not for
nobody does.
No.
And that's my point. They operate differently. So, I mean, if you don't think pedal taverns should operate between 4 and 6, which is fine, I think they should, because they're more like a taxi. Do we keep taxis from operating 4 to 6? And they're faster than the pedal taverns. I think that's a factual statement, isn't it?
But they are still considered a slow-moving vehicle. So if a taxi fell within that realm of a slow-moving vehicle, then I would be saying, yes, sir, we should be regulating that as well. But this falls in that slow-moving vehicle.
Well, then
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the golf cart either. So if we want to consider a change in rule for the golf carts that they cannot operate within the perimeter of the downtown that's been established, and that they can only operate on a fixed route, I would say yes, we should include the golf carts as well, because they are a tour. Sometimes they are going from point A to point B, but they do also provide sightseeing tour guidance.
Director Alarcon, do I understand that, I think what I heard was that the NDOT is recommending this rule change because even though it potentially adds more vehicles, it's going to be monitored to where the routes are not going to affect downtown traffic?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And it would not be approved if in any way it started to impact the flow of traffic?
Correct.
Can you talk us through those monitoring procedures?
So we do have out enforcement that is operating during these times that are looking for someone that would be within the perimeter that has been established, that they're not to be operating. And we also do from time to time go and monitor and make sure that they are following their fixed route requirements. So our enforcement team is out doing that. I do have an update on our enforcement. We currently have 25 enforcement folks. We were down a few, but we are now 25, but 2 of them are brand new. So we got to give them about 6 weeks to get acclimated with the rules and policies and procedures. So we're operating on a much more individuals than we have had in the past. So we're actually really getting on top of our enforcement on every single level.
That's great. Are you confident that if these slow-moving vehicles, the pedal vehicles, were added, that you would have the appropriate enforcement for the routes?
Yes, ma'am, we do feel we would have enough enforcement for the routes. And I would say that when we get the mobility lanes built out in downtown, a pedicab can fit in a bicycle mobility lane, and technically they can operate in them. So we would need to come back with the rule change request at that time that says they can only operate in the downtown area in a bicycle lane. However, we do not have that infrastructure in place. That's one of the things we're working in as part of phase 1 of Connect Downtown that we're currently ongoing with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I would make a suggestion that if the commission does modify this rule and allow it, that any of the vehicles that violate the route, the approved route between 4 and 6, that we don't worry about 3 strikes. We bring them immediately before this commission on a complaint.
Yes, sir.
And I can assure you there would be very severe sanctions that if the complaint was proven.
Yes, sir.
I don't think
Thank
we
you.
need to wait 3 strikes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something?
Yeah.
I know we put in there, as you guys know, closures, construction, events, so that needs to be taken into account. I would ask that would be taken into consideration if this is approved, that, if something's closed, we would have to go around it.
Emmett, is there currently a process if you have to change your route to tell NDOT, or walk me through that process?
Well, there's changes unknown. There are closures that are unknown to us on a weekly basis, and because
I'm very familiar. I operate.
So we've been operating for 10 years in this environment.
Yeah.
So we're acclimated to understand. The drivers know how to just go around. It's impossible to communicate to anybody because nobody's communicating even to us or even to you guys when a road is closed. So if there's a concert at Ascend and all of a sudden they close it for a few hours, or a hockey game or something, and they close those for an hour or 45 minutes, whatever, we just either are in that traffic with everybody else, or the drivers go around and they figure out a way around.
Listen, I understand you 100%. Like, our van drivers have had to drive on sidewalks. Don't tell Director Alacron or anything. So I get that. But
Yes, don't tell me that.
But my question is, because we're trying to, if we were to give you 4 to 6, right? Is there a way that you can track, your driver can note, there's a log, there's something, so that if we come back and say, hey, you weren't in the approved route, you have the ability to already say, this was why? You know what I'm saying? To have some accountability on both sides.
Well, we have cameras on all of our bikes, so if you brought that to our attention immediately, we can easily look at the camera. If it's a month later, there's no way to track that.
So if I
Does
may,
that answer your question?
If I may, just real quick, when they put in this rule, it's saying between the hours of 4 and 6, they would have to bring in a fixed route to be approved. If there is construction on that route, we're not going to approve the fixed route. If there's some challenges with being able to have them operate during the hours of 4 and 6 on that fixed route, we're not going to approve it. If there is an event, there is a way for them to know. We do put it in their hands of their responsibilities. I had just quickly asked TD to put it up on the screen. There is a way to go in and look at road closures that are occurring, and we would expect them to log if they have to get off of the route because of road closures, that they log it so that if something is caught and they are brought forward for a violation, they would provide it. That onus would be 100% on them with this 4 to 6. That's how it's established with the ETV and sightseeing. We would expect the same thing from them. Typically, the road closures that are occurring are happening in the more downtown core. It's very important that during the hours of 4 and 6, they will not get an approval for a fixed route that's in the downtown core. So they're operating most likely in an area where we're not closing a road due to a fixed route. But if there is a construction, that's taken into consideration at the time of the review of the route. If we know that construction is coming on, because keep in mind, we're having conversations with potential construction happening 3 months out. We're having those conversations with the developers. We know what road closures are getting ready to come up. That's why we want the chief engineer to be reviewing it, because that's all taken into consideration when we're reviewing a route.
I appreciate that, and also as someone who does this on a daily basis, I've showed up to the river and had it completely fenced off in the morning and didn't know.
Yeah.
So
don't
yes,
control the river.
Well, it was,
but I do control the roads
I
into it.
understand.
Yes.
But like this is Nashville. Things pop up on the roads. There are surprises all the time. So
True.
I appreciate you clarifying that there's already a precedent for the ETVs to log the changes
Yes.
to the route, and that's, you know, with the Old Town Trolley and everything that happened before, I just want to make it clear to have a way to establish if there's a question.
We would expect them to be tracking where they're moving if they're getting off the fixed route. But he had mentioned the predators, and I just want to make it very clear, that's in the downtown core. The fixed route that he would turn in would never be improved in the downtown core. So when we're saying you can operate between 4 and 6, doesn't mean they can operate anywhere they want. They have to turn in a fixed route, and if it's within our perimeter of the downtown area that's currently not allowed, it would not be approved. So I don't think that would be an area where there's that type of thing suddenly happening, because we would not, and First Avenue by the river is actually within the perimeter of where we do not want operation of slow-moving vehicles happening between the hours of 4 and 6.
Go ahead, Emmett.
So you're essentially saying no, because we can't operate anywhere outside of downtown. And if you go downtown, I don't have my watch on me, but right now, and you look at the traffic is not bad. There are videos, tons of videos, we took yesterday to show the traffic. So you're asking us to take vehicles that can't go outside of downtown to operate, and even these guys, we've all been established for 10 years under an ordinance, going by the rules for the last 10 years. We have, I don't know how many permits they have, but specifically speaking about my industry, we have 25 permits, whereas the ETVs have over 90 at this point. They're new. They just came on board the last several years. They have 90 permits, and they were given the ability to go operate. And we're asking for the same fairness. But if you're saying, well, you can have it, but you can't operate where you can operate, then you're essentially saying no to us. And I don't know how you could give 96 permits the ability to operate between 6 and 4 and then tell us that we've been here for 10 years, but we can't have the same rights.
So if I may just add, in Connect Downtown, when the study was done, we looked at slow-moving vehicles that were affecting the ability for traffic to flow. Slow-moving vehicles were your sightseeing, your ETVs, your pedal taverns, or pedal carriages, excuse me, let me say it correctly, and as well as horse and buggies, golf carts, and the pedicabs. Okay? What we did was, for sightseeing reasons and other reasons, we needed to create fixed routes that could happen, but we did not want it to occur in the downtown core. So in fairness, they have the ability to operate now between 4 and 6, where they did not have the right to operate before the hours of 4 and 6, but it has to be on a fixed route that they turn in, and it's approved by either the director over the TLC, which is Ricky, and our traffic engineer, our chief engineer, who reviews all of the traffic scenarios that are occurring. We wanted to be fair and offer that same scenario to everyone, because technically no one should be operating in the downtown core between the hours of 4 and 6 at this point. We do not want that to change until we get further moved on Connect Downtown. till we get more of it implemented where we understand the traffic and we improve the traffic flow and the ability for everyone to get around. It's not just about them having the opportunity to move or the sightseeing or ETVs. It's about everybody having the ability to get in and out of downtown, and that's why we're asking for the hours of 4 to 6, because that was our peak, is when we were getting strangled.
So to Emmett's point that the ETVs are operating between 4 and 6, is that those are unapproved routes that are not downtown?
Correct.
Okay.
They have vehicle motors. They can drive those vehicles because they're vehicles that are 40, 50 feet long. They have the ability to go up hills. So you gave 96 permits the right to go, and you pushed everybody out of downtown.
Yes, sir.
And in reality, everybody here travels downtown. Everybody here knows that if you go downtown right now, the traffic is not what you're saying it is. I just respectively disagree.
And you're certainly welcome to do that,
Yes.
but the study and the data did show.
So
Guys, we're asking for equality. We've been waiting for Connect studies for almost 10 years. When we were told, almost 10 years, we were told many years ago that they needed to do a traffic study when they asked the pedicabs not to operate between 4 and 6. Scooters came in, they have no regulation or stop to operate between 4 and 6. Golf carts can operate between 4 and 6, and honestly, it's really hard to regulate an independent driver going in certain places and maybe catching them and maybe not catching them. There's not necessarily a designated route from what I've seen, because I've seen them operate everywhere in 4 to 6. We have been, kind of looped in, and no offense, with, pedal carriages, and we operate differently. We go at different speeds. Our mobility is different, and we get looped into a slow-moving vehicle category, which then affects our business and being treated differently. We're not able to operate from 4 to 6, but we see other things, brand new things like, bicycles, which is almost the same thing, right, except not carrying passengers, scooters, golf carts, all operating between these times. Why not us, and why can't we be separated?
I appreciate your comments, and I had some thoughts. I really appreciated that you were just frank with us, that when you say that you want to fix a route, you were talking about, well, if there's something in front of a Preds game or something like that, which clearly is not something any of us are trying to enable. I don't think there's an appetite to add pedal carriages back to that operating zone. And so I was going to ask you what your fixed route was going to be. Like, what is it that you would propose? But it sounds like you're saying that there isn't one under
no, we have one. I turned it in.
So what is it? What is the route?
Did you hand me my phone?
Because that conflicts with what you said just a few minutes ago, that there really was no desire, there was no place to go outside of the core. But what is it that you would want?
So when Broadway is closed, which is what we would approach this as a route, our building is on 6th and Lafayette. So we come out of 6th, we go down 6th Avenue to KVB, we turn right on KVB, we would turn left on 5th, we would turn right onto Mumbrum.
That's in the middle of all the traffic. I
know, that's what I was trying to say.
Right, okay. So this
you
is
asked me
why,
what my route was, and I'm telling you what the route
exactly, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because I don't think there's a way for them, when the equity argument here, I don't think it's apples to apples with the ETVs, because they have a different restriction of where they can operate. So they can 4 to 6 be outside of the downtown core, but frankly, Nashville doesn't want pedal carriages outside of the downtown core, and because of traffic between 4 to 6, it's not going to work for the people who live here. So I don't think there is an equity argument, in my opinion, here to be made for your business. Your business, on the other hand, I really see that with golf carts, that it doesn't seem fair to me that 4 to 6, that golf carts are able to operate. If they are doing a sightseeing and they're not providing A to B, transportation to help people get from here to there when traffic is bad. But that being said, I'm not sure that to make it equitable, I'm really on the fence about whether pedicabs should be added to the 4 to 6, but I'm very much on board with sightseeing golf carts being removed from being able to operate between 4 to 6, because I think they are in a sightseeing ETV type of slow vehicle moving situation. So I think it makes sense for them to be limited between 4 to 6 to the same sightseeing and ETV routes or something like that, wherever those are. And those are just that's just my
Emmett, you said something that I'd like to follow up on, which I think has a point that was maybe not talked about. So you talk about motorized versus non-motorized, right? You said the ETVs, because they have bigger motors, they can easily go
They have
and
engines,
they have engines and can go find another route. So I'm thinking of this as like in my world, a kayak versus a motorized boat. It's not as easy to just pick up and go to a new route. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And you're on 6th and Lafayette right now?
Yes.
And so
I own a building downtown in the core.
Okay. So is there a route you could start from 6th and Lafayette that doesn't go in the downtown core that you could operate between 4 and 6?
Can I answer this with my version of common sense?
Please.
Okay. You're asking us to push our vehicles into more traffic. If anybody would actually take an honest effort to actually, aside from the report that was done, I don't know how many years ago, if anybody would actually go downtown right now and look at the streets, we are down there every day. It is not reflective of what is being said. It's not.
I frankly disagree with you.
Okay, can I finish?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, well, so, okay, in respect to that.
Hurry up and finish, because I'm going to bring this thing to a conclusion in
Okay,
a moment.
so in respect to that, we've been, again, operating for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We were here a long time ago. With respect to Ms. Penley, I think it's, and this is a little side note, but I think it has to be spoken. I don't think it's fair that you can give your opinion when you're in a newspaper article discussing your hatred for us. I think that your bias against us should be set aside. And that I think, in all fairness, you have publicly said how much you hate us. So I don't think that you should be up there expressing that opinion and saying it's all Nashville, because it's not all Nashville. We wouldn't have an industry that was this busy if everybody hated us. So you saying that people don't want us there is not true.
All right, that's enough. No, you can respond. Then I'm going to bring this thing to a head here.
I will just say that the reason why I'm serving on this commission is because of my experience as a person who lives in this town and the experience that other people know, and the council chose me to serve. And I'm representing the folks who put me up on this commission and the people who live in Nashville. And so I don't think there's anything about my experience of living in Nashville and my negative experiences with your industry that made me unqualified to serve on this council.
But it's clear that you don't want us, so it's fair to say that.
We're going to stop. First of all, I'm going to point out something. The only thing on the agenda today is consideration of the rule change to allow pedicabs and pedicarriages to operate between 4 and 6 on approved routes by Director Rooker and the NDOT engineers. We are not here today to discuss whether you guys should be allowed to operate between 4 and 6, carte blanche, downtown, or anywhere else. That's the only thing that's on the agenda today. Now, I'm going to bring this discussion here, unless any commissioners have questions or concerns. I think it's time to bring this discussion to an end and make a decision about whether we're going to approve the rule changes to allow pedicabs and pedicarriages to operate between 4 and 6 on approved routes. I'll open.
Just one other piece of consideration, or I guess question relative to the specific rule. Director Alarcon, you mentioned that a route would not be approved by you or Mr. Rooker, but what about your successor or his successor? Do you have a strong opinion on codifying this maybe a little bit more to and maybe this is really not for you, and it's for the rest of the commission, but to expressly prohibit staff from approving routes in the downtown core.
Well, and I think also what you're saying is maybe we need we need to build in a criteria for consideration of what is an approved route. And one of them might be none downtown.
Yeah, and look, I've until today been very much in favor of giving staff the ability to make approvals because it's their job, right? But I guess the Old Town Trolley piece where there was confusion about whether or not there was a route approved makes me feel like we should be a little bit more explicit that there isn't an ability to approve a route in an area, because none of us thought that any routes could have possibly been approved downtown in the core. And so I'd be curious the rest of the commission's opinion on tightening this a little bit to prohibit the approval of a route maybe from Korean Veterans Boulevard to Union 1st to 8th or 1st to 12th.
I guess I would just say that if we were going to do that for this particular rule change, we should do it. I'm kind of the equity girl here. Sure. You know, it would need to be done for the other rule that we changed as well.
If I may just add one bit of information for the commission for consideration is the Connect Downtown is looking at ways to improve the movement of all vehicles in the downtown area, and there's a lot of recommendations that were made. As a matter of fact, the recommendations that were made to occur and be implemented over a 10-year period. But each of the and there's 3 phases. We're going to try to shorten that timeline. We feel like that needs to happen in like 3 to 4 years, and we're trying to expedite a lot of this, but some of this is going to be major infrastructure, roadway improvements like we're seeing on 2nd. So, but the intent was as we hit a phase, we would actually do an evaluation and bring back before this commission the improvements that the phase 1 provided. For example, putting in the loading and loading zones, the corrals, improving the signalization, which is one of the things. If that provides an improvement in how traffic moves, then there could be a recommendation to change rules. So I want to let you know. One of the reasons also, Commissioner Hayes, that I added in the chief engineer was to have that other perspective so we wouldn't be making those mistakes. So I didn't want it to be just up to the TLC. I wanted also our chief engineer who is involved in the development side of the house, who's involved in also the TMC, which is our traffic management center, and who is also involved in our special events, would have that broad view, so that if there is going to be other things that are going to affect what is in place, that would be known and said at that time. And so that's why I put that in. So I just want to provide that information, not trying to drive anything. I just wanted y'all to know those perspectives that we put into play. Sorry, Ricky.
That's quite all right. Thank you. So you have an overseer.
That's a good thing.
All right.
I would say, or at a minimum, you know, if staff approves the route, it comes back to us, and that can be for future consideration. And then we're aware it doesn't just end up on and really that's not just the we that are sitting here today, but over the next 10 or 20 or 30 years that the TLC is aware of without having to go to a website to find it, of a route that's been approved. Because none of us were aware, for example, of the supposed routes that were.
And Commissioner, we can for sure, but we can do that next month and show you. I think there's only 3 or 4. There's 4 approved routes as of right now. Our enforcement staff has those approved routes also. They are familiar with them. They know where they are and where they're supposed to be. We'll be happy to provide that information to the commission.
Would the routes you approved for the ETVs also, would it also be possible for the pedal vehicles to use those same routes?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Whatever is actually approved as a fixed route, any of the slow-moving vehicles would be able to actually follow those fixed routes. So what's already been approved, they would be able to.
Have y'all seen those approved fixed routes already?
I'm sorry, what approved routes?
Previous approved.
I haven't, but we'll make them work.
Okay.
Well, and
That's what you want, we'll make it work.
And what I've heard is that your equipment may have some challenges of being able to get to those routes. And just keep us informed.
Okay.
But I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I'm just saying, the only thing we have on our agenda is what's on our agenda here. We're not to look at whether everything should be opened or not.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep, we're just asking for fairness, so if we need to work on those routes, we'll do it.
And the only fairness we can give you today is a consideration for the commission to consider 4 to 6 with approved routes.
That's all I ask.
Well,
thank you.
We could have cut through this a lot quicker.
We could have.
Do we think also in the spirit of equity and maybe what we've learned today, that staff could take a look at the golf carts and bring back some information to us next month?
That's a good idea.
Perhaps only Chair McNally and Commissioner Rogers have been around long enough on this commission to recall when the low-speed vehicles came into authority under the TLC, originally there was a 4 to 6 prohibition. A slow-moving vehicle study was completed in 2018 that found the golf carts could keep up with the speed of traffic because they're limited to roads that are 35 miles per hour or less by state law. So the vote was vacated December 13th, 2018 for any 4 to 6 operations by the low-speed vehicles.
Quite a history lesson there.
Yeah, but we have since then done a new study, and the slow-moving vehicles did include the golf carts. So I would ask, since Mr. Hayes raised it, I would certainly say we can pull that information and bring that back before this commission for consideration and information.
And I remember quite vividly when Joyride came in with their first golf carts. I think they were the first new form of transportation that hit our streets. And as I think his name's Sizemore had pointed out, there was quite a ruckus back then, and then it all settled out, and then we started to find a nice equilibrium. So.
This is the problems of growth. It's a good problem.
All right, we do have an agenda item on here. Are we looking for a vote on that, Mr. Rooker? Or?
Yes, sir.
All right. Currently, we have the consideration of amending, Section 702 to allow pedicabs and pedicarriages to operate between 4 and 6 on routes or zones that are approved by the Director of TLC and the NDOT's Chief Engineer.
I would make a motion that the commission adopt the proposed Section 702 operational hours as presented by the staff.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Wait, I'd like to make an amendment. Is that okay? Is that appropriate after the second?
Well, let's make it part of the discussion. We'll see if Commissioner Westlake wants to amend her motion, okay?
Okay, I thought,
Yeah.
well, all right.
I'm going to open up, you made a second, I'm going to open up for discussion now.
Okay, that's what yeah.
What's the
The amendment. I want to amend to exempt the pedicabs from any requirement for fixed routes in this motion. In other words, they'd be allowed to operate from 4 to 6, but not be required to stay on the fixed routes.
I'm willing to adopt that amendment for the purposes of discussion. For that amendment, my motion.
And I don't know if it was clear, but I'd like to also make an amendment that the pedal vehicles must log any changes to the routes, and that is the responsibility of the company to log those changes.
Commissioner Rogers, my concern about your proposed amendment is that if we're going to be looking at taking the golf carts out of, or restricting golf carts from 4 to 6, it's inconsistent with the pedicabs being able to operate anywhere from 4 to 6.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand. I mean,
Well, there's been a request to put on the agenda next month or at some point, restricting golf carts from not operating from 4 to 6.
Right.
Because as Mr. Shafley has pointed out, in 2018, we voted to allow them to operate from 4 to 6, and now because of changes of traffic and various other developments downtown, it may be time to reconsider that and put it back the way it was, where golf carts didn't operate from 4 to 6. Getting to my point, then that would be inconsistent with opening it up for pedicabs now to be operating from 4 to 6 anywhere.
True, it would.
So I would.
And I want it to be inconsistent.
Okay.
Can we comment on that?
Hold on.
No.
Technically, no, but you can't.
Well,
I'm sorry. You
no,
need to hold
okay,
on,
sorry.
please.
Sure.
All right. So there is not a second to the motion then. So unless you are amending your motion.
So I would suggest that your suggestion is a separate motion, because this is just really about
Yes.
a language change.
Sure.
Not opposed to it, just, yeah. I will renew my original motion.
Which is to adopt the proposed Section 702 operation hours as is up on the screen there.
Yes.
All right.
Second.
And there was also some discussion about adding some more language to
Which
it.
we can
Look at later. Okay.
do separately,
Okay.
No, you have to.
or do we have to do it as part
you
of,
have
I
to
don't
do it
know.
now, don't you?
It'd be a separate motion.
I do think
Chair.
we
Chair.
can take one step at a time. Yes.
I think legal has a comment.
I have a question. So your motion was to approve section 702 as it is up there.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else?
And I've seconded.
And he seconded.
So we have more discussion on the motion and the second,
Okay.
if there is any.
I have.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share that I'd be opposed to this, and I'll be voting no on this motion because it was clear during our debate, it's discussion, that there is the equity argument here isn't apples to apples with ETVs, which I think was because they can't operate outside of the downtown core during 4 to 6 like ETVs can for those approved routes. So that would be.
I just told her I could.
But
I just amended and said
I thought that you are not allowed to operate outside the downtown core.
If
they approve
I don't know where you're getting that from.
Was that not in the? Don't you have limits on your ability? Like, aren't there already like a jurisdictional
Yes.
area?
There's operational boundaries set forth in section 703 of the TLC rules and regulations.
Okay. Is part of this map outside of the downtown core? That ETV vehicles?
All of that
can-
map's
A
outside.
little part of it, yes,
Okay.
there is, that, like down in the area where he's pointing, and that little kind of boot hill at the
Okay.
bottom.
So that would be really the only area in which there would be equity with ETV vehicles would be in that little corner of there, which he has now said that he can make that work from 4 to 6 to be on, what are those? Those are Church, wait, that can't be Church Street as part of the not. Okay.
That's the map where ETVs are not allowed to operate during 4 to 6. Correct? Because that's from 1st to 21st.
The blue is where they're not allowed to currently be operating. And if they want to operate outside of the blue shaded area between the hours of 4 and 6, they have to present a route or a fixed route. And it has to be approved by Mr. Roker and as well as our chief engineer.
Can you show us one of the routes that
Yeah.
you already have as an example?
He's going to bring it up.
I saw you were looking for it on your website earlier.
And we'll start making sure we include this in your monthly package so you have everything.
That'd be
We
great.
apologize for not including it in the past.
So that route comes into the blue shaded area.
I'm sorry, I believe there was a confusion. I believe there's a confusion in what was just stated. The pedal carriages do, in their rules, have operational boundaries. It's Rule 703. Because it's pretty unclear by looking at these words, I went ahead and mapped it for the meeting today. This is the pedal vehicle operational zone. Pedal vehicles should not, by your Rule 703, operate outside of this zone. Now, the rule about ETs operating or not operating between 4 and 6, I believe excludes them from KVB to Union, 8th to 1st.
Yes.
That Old Town Trolley route you just showed was all through there.
But the blue route was just for the pedal tavern.
Right, but
sorry,
I know, but
believe that
I
it
thought
is.
you had said previously that there was no scenario where you were going to allow an ETV to operate in the core.
I'm sorry, sir. ETVs are between KVB and Union and First and 8th.
And
So that is the territory that we are having the largest amount of impact in traffic in Connect Downtown. So I apologize. That is the territory, the blue shade is what the pedal taverns have to operate within. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. So ETVs right now and the sightseeings cannot operate in the downtown core, which is KVB to Union and First Avenue or the river to 8th Avenue. They cannot operate on any of that and within it. So outside of it, if they want to operate between the hours of 4 and 6 right now, they have to turn in and ask for a fixed route to be approved by Mr. Roker and our chief engineers. I apologize. The blue that was shaded is the only place that they can operate now. We are saying they cannot operate between the hours of 4 and 6, between KVB and Union and 1st and 8th. And if they want to operate outside between the hours of 4 and 6, they have to turn in a request for a route. Excuse me.
So that's 8th route, that's KVB. Your other one got on to Demumbrian. I mean, I don't know how a traffic engineer could say that putting one on Demumbrian at rush hour.
On Demumbrian?
Yeah. Old Town Trolley's on Demumbrian for one block. But you think about trying to load in a Preds game or a concert.
This is the fixed route. Get them taking them through downtown. Let us get.
And so you think about trying to egress at 4 o'clock, that route goes this direction and puts these guys onto my block, but this is kind of, when you get to here, that is a huge choke point coming up. Above 8.
Huh?
It's above 8.
But it's outside of 8. So that one block's outside of 8.
But it causes, back to your network, and back to network, that causes a backup all the way through First Day.
So they're traveling it, but they're not stopping. But let us, I think what we need to add in this conversation, Commissioner, is the stop. So they may be on it, but they're not stopping, which means they are flowing with the traffic at that time. But let us take a look at that. The blue shaded area for the pedal taverns, the reason why they were given that area to operate in was for that, but we need to do that. But what we'll add to this is the stops, and I think that's very important because that's where it creates the congestion. I believe we did not allow them to stop. They have to move with the flow of traffic, so we wouldn't have that backlog, but they are outside of 8th. Now, if we want to have a further discussion about expanding the territory, as you had said, to 12th, I heard earlier when we were having the conversation, we can definitely take that look, and then therefore this would be taken out of consideration. But right now, when our engineers are looking at it and the traffic flow and the pinch points, they are making sure that the stops are not going to be in those pinch points. They will allow them to move with the flow of traffic, but we're not allowing them to be within this perimeter, which is, again, KVB to Union and the river to 8th. And that's been the territory that is like a no-go, if that helps. And I haven't confused.
No, thank you, Director. I would move to defer this one meeting, and in that time, kindly request for NDOT to update those maps and put the ETV already approved routes with stops, and then reach out to these folks and see what routes they would like with stops, and then have
Did you, I think you had an open motion.
Oh. We do. We do. And I'd like to make one observation. Much of what Commissioner Hayes is bringing up now deals with looking at the routes when they come to us next month or the month after and things of that nature, where we can start analyzing that and trying to have the commissioners' input on that. What we're still before us today, though, is just a question of whether we're going to amend 702, and there's been a motion on the table. That's correct,
That's
right?
correct.
Ms. Westlake? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Michael,
I second the
yeah,
motion
okay.
prohibits these guys, 7 and 9 and 46. Correct.
and 4 to 6 permitted with the approval of the director and the engineer, chief engineer and okay. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate my point that I'm still not exactly sure with the operation restrictions just every day, all day for pedal taverns, how that overlays what is left to be approved by NDOT for this equity decision we're making here with ETVs, because they're not the same. So I feel like we should not have to be, I don't find that argument compelling in this instance unless that boundary were to change somehow during 4 to 6 for them to be in the same area as ETVs. But that's not what I see before us right now. So, but I'm just one vote.
Any further discussion?
I'm not opposed to this. I just don't feel like I have enough information, and that's why I would prefer a deferral.
So there's a motion on the table.
All right, so there's motion on the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Mr. Rogers, I didn't hear anything down there. An aye? All right, so do we have 3 to 2?
Motion passes.
Motion passes. All right. Thank you, folks.
I did have a question about because the study was loading vehicles kind of included pedal carriages and pedicabs and whatnot. Is there a way to differentiate like the areas that pedicabs can operate versus pedal taverns, not based on Connect study because they were kind of looped in all together and they're totally different vehicles?
All we can tell you today is that you are now approved to be able to operate between 4 or 6 on routes that are approved by Director Rooker and by the engineer with NDOT. So put your route together and submit it and see if it passes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Can I ask a question of legal? Can the director approve different routes for pedicabs than he approves for the pedal taverns? They have to be the same routes, just because they're under the same ordinance.
Any route that is presented will be, if it's approved, will be allowed for both of them to use. So if they submit a route, then the carriages would be able to use those.
Well, unless it's outside of their operating.
Right, unless it's outside, correct. I mean, all the parameters that are involved now are still there, if that makes sense. Go ahead, TD.
What I was going to add that engineering takes a look at is the size, speed, turning radius of the vehicles and the width of the streets proposed. So speed limits of the streets proposed. So that's something engineering has been looking at on the request we received because vehicles differ.
Really, the only possible exception I think would make sense for us off the top of my head would be the bike lane on Commerce.
Or just
that's
only bike lanes if that were an option. But if our routes are approved and then that means that the pedal carriages can follow that, I just asked, like, is there an opportunity to just separate us somehow with any of this?
Well, we got some separation.
And that's my question. I mean, can we not have a different route for them than you have for the pedal taverns, or does it have to be the same for all of them?
My understanding is they have to react to submitted routes. So
Right.
submit a
We
route.
submit our route and then
Submit your route.
Submit your route.
And if your route's approved, I mean, and it's outside of where they can operate, then they can't use your route.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense, yeah.
Just, I would say submit your route first.
Yeah.
And then I am curious, under the law, are we allowed to separate?
I think Metro Legal.
We already talked through that.
Ms. Haber, didn't you already give us an opinion on that?
I did, but there would have to be a rational basis to separate them because the entire rubric of pedal carriages and pedicabs is one. But they are treated differently by their definition under that law.
Not to speak
and
for
also
my
in
fellow
your
commissioners,
rules.
but it would, not to speak for my fellow commissioners, but just inferring from what I've heard from them over the last couple of years, it does seem as if they operate differently. One operates in my mind at least, a point-to-point transportation service, not a tour, and the other is a joyride. it's getting on and it's a route and it's making noise versus I want to go home after a Titans game or a Preds game, or I want to go from a bar to a restaurant.
And so maybe that's something we can take up at some point.
And well, to your point though, I would add just for consideration that, although they're, ETVs and sightseeing vehicles versus the entertainment vehicles are under the same, group too, but they have different, they're defined differently and have different permits and different, so
And the first day, after I bent my car and I go back, one customer just waved to me and I say, okay. And she was old couple, one of them was old lady. She said, would you please wait for me? I'm just gonna get my husband at a bar. So that's what I did, and I just opened the door. All of a sudden, the police officer come behind me and then write me the ticket. Says, sir, here is the woman. And the woman take them. I was waiting for the customer. Her husband have a wheelchair, so I have to stop and help them women and get in the car. And he just treated me really bad. And he's like, get out. And the woman is like, okay, I'm just getting out. So they get out. So I after he tried me write me the ticket, so I go back and try to explain to him what happened. And all of a sudden he started yelling at me really bad. I was like, oh. So I take my car and go. And all of a sudden he make me a misdemeanors the case. When I went to the judge and explained to him what happened, he was just like, he gave you misdemeanor because you just a parking ticket. He says like, okay, it's dismissed. It's like, show that to you that's being dismissed and it will be fine. That's what happened. I didn't do anything. And I want to say something about that.
But you did rip up the ticket, correct?
Yes.
There's
I
no
did,
question
but
you
not
ripped it
front
in
of
half.
him. Not front of because it was first day I come back from an accident. I was thinking about my wife. And now what happened, it's the ticket but this ticket destroyed my life. Because what happened, my daughter's friend in the school sent her these pictures. This ticket completely destroyed my life. And send her like I'm a criminal. Because it come for the net. I don't know, like all my daughter's friends send this to my daughter, and she doesn't want to go back to school. Said Sunday I didn't do anything. It's just a parking ticket. And when I went to the judge, he gave me a dismiss to go back to my daughter Sandy. I didn't do anything. And now I'm sorry, guys.
Mr. Wallen, Mr. Michael was employed at one time with 10 Cam, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, and they no longer employ him.
That's correct.
And he's asking to have his permit reinstated?
Yes, and I understand that there's been some history here. Obviously, I didn't represent him on any of the other.
But who would he be employed with if he was reinstated?
I'm not. Well, I can ask him. Do you already have a cab company that would employ you?
No, but there is too many cabs. But it depends on if some company have numbers or no. So when I get my license, I have to go apply for the all cabs company. Whatever they have numbers, they will give it to me because I went to some of the.
Okay, so right now you don't have somebody.
He doesn't.
No,
have
because no one can give me a number until I get my permit back.
Mr. Rooker, there's a letter in here from Matthew Brennan in the packet and it says Richard at the top of it. Was that letter written to you? It's about, it doesn't say.
I believe this is an email sent to me, yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm reading it again.
Yeah, and in there it talks about the individual's father having a seizure, and then they were getting a taxi cab, and his wife flagged down something, and then I'm just wondering if the allegations that are in here are part of what led to Mr. Michael being sent to anger management, or do you know?
No, sir. I believe this has been since that time.
Do you have roughly an idea when that email was sent?
It says April 28th, 2024.
Where are you reading that?
That's on the previous page.
Oh. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Previous page, yes, sir.
What now?
April 28th, 2024.
April 28th, 2024.
All right, so, Mr. Wallen, do you see that
I'm
email
looking
in
at
that starts
that.
with Richard? Has your client reviewed that? Or had a chance to review it recently? I'd like to know if he admits or denies the allegations in there.
This is one of the complaints, Chair, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. This is one of the complaints that prompted the letter that suspended him temporarily.
Yikes.
Can I?
Hold on, read this first.
That's fun too.
Yeah, and, okay.
So can I?
Before my client responds after reviewing this, I don't know, I have no way to cross-examine this letter, obviously. So I don't know if any of it's true or.
I'm just
or
asking if he
right.
said, well,
But-
I'm just
but-
asking if your client says it's true or not.
But is this true?
No, never, because we have downtown to the airport, and from airport to Gaylord it's $30 or $35 and $2 more, and the people always ask before they get in, and I can't. He said here, I told him it's 85 after I said 35. It doesn't make sense. Like if some customer get in my car and I tell him it's 35, and then I tell him 85, his keep going with me. This is completely lie. You think like whatever I'm gonna ask from the customer, he's
Mr.
gonna.
Michael, did you tell the people a flat rate when they got in your car?
Yes, because
yes or no?
No, because
you did not tell them a flat rate.
About not every. It's
on this incident.
No,
yes.
I did not. I did not, because we all the time run the meters. The meters they show up on the dashboard, in the dashboard. So we run the meter. It's with 35 to the Gaylord or airport, and then it takes $2 more than each customers. But I wanna let you just understand that. You think like they came in as like the customer asks you to run the meter, and always run the meter. You think like I'm gonna lose my job for just a one fare. You know what you know my point? You think if there's a customer come in my cab and it's like it says 35, and then I change my opinion 85. You think the customer gonna say yes? No way. Especially at the competition we got in the midtown. If I tell him more than 35 or 30, it can depend on the meter. They're gonna go to the other cab. You know what I mean? And some of them are really like so aggressive, or too many young men. Sometimes you refuse to get them in the car. You feel like you are in danger because some people like weird, you know. And if you said no, I cannot get you there, or sometime you found two couples have one of their friends is hammered and he's gonna throw you up in your car, and so you said no, I don't want to get you. But sometimes the police officer in downtown, they all knows me. I always take the drunk people for free. Sometimes they didn't know where they go. Ask the officers. I went to the office and said, like, I'm free if you need me. Sometimes they have a problem and need to get them out of them. Just stop me and just flash me, and I stop and I get the people out of brother for free. Some of them lose the wallet. I'm a father of 5 kids.
Well, I would agree with you that I think the police downtown do know you well.
Because I'm working 14 hours a day for 7 days. When you're a father of 5 kids, you have to work not less than 12 hours a day. All this happened just because of. All this happened just for parking ticket. Can you believe? Parking ticket destroyed my life. Can you believe it, guys?
So in this letter, it also says that there were about a dozen complaints on Yelp that are associated with your cab number. So if I went on Yelp, would I find those?
I have no idea. I haven't gone on Yelp, but the thing is, I don't know if they're talking about his cab number or someone else's cab number. I'm not. I don't know.
Seemed pretty specific about the cab
Seemed pretty
number.
specific.
Mr. Wallen, you got anything else you want to add today?
No, just the fact that the citation was dismissed. No way to cross-examine, because I don't know what happened here. I wish I knew more about it, but
I don't know anything.
so, but nothing else to add.
Mr. Rooker?
Chair, I think you can look at the packet and the history and even the problems that Mr. Fields had along the lines. I just believe that he has a very bad temper and an anger issue, and I'm just not sure he's safe to be driving folks around in a cab based upon complaints that we've had, based upon the way he talk to the police. I mean, if somebody's going to talk to the police like that, what are they going to do to just ordinary citizens? So it's the same story. Mr. Fields introduced me to Mr. Michael one of my first 2 or 3 days there. It was the same story. Got 5 kids, and I'm having to work and send them to anger management, and we've done all of these things. I just don't know. This is the really only option that I had to bring before the commission.
You know, what I find interesting here is that, let's say we vote to revoke his permit. It doesn't stop him from going out and being an Uber driver, does it?
No, sir, it does not. This keeps him from working for a cab company.
And the state doesn't come in and check on this to decide whether this person should be operating on the street or not?
No, sir, they do not.
So how do we protect the community?
That's a good question.
I'm not just directing this to you, Mr. Michael. I'm talking in general concerns, because this commission is responsible for public necessity and safety. And we've already addressed this, that we have no idea how many Uber, green, blue, yellow, whatever, anything but black is out on our streets in Nashville.
It's really up to Uber and Lyft.
Well, that's an off-topic comments by the chairperson.
And if I could, the issues with, I mean, obviously he was talking about a very stressful situation that happened where they had to take their car that he was using as a cab, and it was out of commission based on the accident that happened the day before the situation happened, when they had to get another brand new vehicle, and his wife sold his car, and the pressure that they were under and the financial issues or whatever. And then the situation with trying to pick up he explained this, picking up the individuals that were taking a little longer because the individuals in a wheelchair trying to come to the vehicle, and the confrontation with the police officer that wrote the ticket. I mean, we can see that the things that Mr. Rooker was testifying to, and we're seeing the length of time that happened between those 2 dates when he completed the anger management, was put on a probationary period for 6 months, that he completed that time period. And so in this particular situation that ignited this particular cause of action, and we can see there's a copy of the ticket. It's ripped in half. It wasn't ripped up in little bitty pieces or anything like that. The question is whether or not, and you brought up the point about, well, he could do this he can still drive for these other companies. But the question is, the individual, has he threatened anybody, or has he hurt anybody, or anything like that? And the answer is no. The officer obviously didn't like the fact that he ripped up his ticket.
Well, wait a second. It says that he actually got the ticket, left, and came back and raised and ripped the ticket up. And I kind of believe that, because why would you come back to the officer and rip the ticket?
Well, I watched the body camera.
Yeah.
I watched the body camera. And the thing is, he was pleading with him to take the ticket back.
Yes.
And in his frustration,
when he asked me to go,
stop. And I watched the body cam.
Okay.
And he was begging him, because it was a financial. The ticket was an expensive ticket that he wrote him, and it was a financial burden, and he was under financial duress, and he was asking him and pleading with him to take the ticket back. And in frustration, he was arguing, and he's like, please don't give me this ticket, and he ripped the ticket.
not throwing them when I go back to the.
And then what do you
and
say?
And he's apologized to the officer.
Yeah.
He's apologized to him, even to the point of kissing his feet.
Yes.
I saw that myself.
Yes.
because he was so
You think I'm
remorseful.
dangerous when I'm begging somebody because I tell I'm gonna lose my job for.
What weight should we be giving, in your opinion, should we be giving to Matthew Brennan's email to Mr. Rooker? And what's a horrendous
Well,
story
if-
of events.
Well, if that's true, but it does seem odd. It does seem odd, the amount, the discussion and the amount and things of that nature. And they said after 7 minutes in the car. And the thing is, there's a couple of red flags there with this. They must have had some sort of disagreement with him or whatever. No question about that for them to go through all of this process. But something doesn't seem right there.
Yes.
That you would ride 7 minutes in a car, and you're already arguing when you have a medical emergency, which had already been addressed by the paramedics, and they're going to wherever they're going home or whatever. But in 7 minutes, they're having a discussion, argument. Something's not right there, and I can't question them on it because I would love to understand what happened. Because if it's exactly as they said, yes, that might be a problem for sure, and an issue. But the thing is, they didn't have to pay him. They didn't have to get out of the cab. I'm not sure why they got out of the cab after 7 minutes, or where they were, or what happened. But we can't. I can't question an email. And the fact that they went to a Yelp review. I mean, the thing is, they're write a complaint, but they're going on Yelp reviews because they're going to leave a review. So the thing is, obviously, this is a person that wants to see if they write a complaint. I bet you they're one of the complaints. I'm not sure. I don't know. So, and I don't know how old the Yelp reviews are. I don't know if that was over a period of time. I know nothing of it. And he doesn't work for 10 Cab anymore. And the things, and he doesn't have a place that is actually trying to say we're going to employ you, because he can't even apply for that. But I would simply state, though, if you look at the time that when this period happened, and by the way, the fact that this case got continued a couple of times, one was because I was in a murder trial, but the first time it was set, we sat here for 4 hours, and then you guys lost quorum. So it's not as if we've been putting this off or trying to avoid it, because I wanted to have the hearing with the officers that were here that first time. And so it's not because we're trying to avoid having this hearing, but the thing is, in the interim, we have a period of time where there's been no complaints except for the complaint of he's driving his vehicle as an Uber.
No.
I didn't ask you to say anything.
Thank you.
Remind me, Mr. Rooker, when were you first made aware of these incidents? There's when Director Fields was still here? The driver?
There's in your packet, there's a March 9th to 2023, Mr. Fields wrote him a letter about being observed driving with his door open down Broadway. So I came in 2022, and so Mr. Fields and I'd been in several meetings where Mr. Field had called Mr. Michael into the office. But this was so it all started in March of last year, 2023.
And would you characterize this as a pattern of behavior?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Rooker, when you were present during the meetings with Mr. Fields and Mr. Michael, did Mr. Michael make admissions to the violations that you have brought before us?
Not sure he ever quite admitted to those things. He would it would always be the same thing. I've got 5 kids. Billy would tell him, you've got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing this. Send him to anger management class, which he did complete. But I believe he's been kind of a problem. I can't speak for Mr. Fields, but during my time there, I've seen his name and heard his name several times. Even before I came to the director of the TLC.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussions? Is there a motion?
I think the motion is to, for an emergency suspension of taxi cab driver Youssef Shahita Michael I'll make a motion to suspend the license.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion on to suspend Mr. Michael's permit for operating a taxi cab. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Wallen, thank you for your time today. Appreciate you coming down here.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the time.
All right, let's see. Other business. Any other business, Mr. Rooker? Hearing none.
I would say,
Chair, legal's got a question here.
Yes?
For how long are you suspending his driver's permit?
Yeah, I was kind of interested. It was a suspension instead of revocation, so.
Yeah, because Mr. Rooker had already suspended it on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
He already did the emergency suspension, so now you have to decide whether to, and then staff's recommendation is to now revoke it permanently.
Oh, sorry.
We can rescind your motion, I think, or you can now make a decision as to how long to suspend it for, if you want to suspend as opposed to revoke. But under Chapter 6, or Section 672-180, the commission or its director is authorized to place on probation, suspend, or revoke any permit. So the director uses discretion and authority to
Make
do the
an
temporary
emergency suspension, yes, and recommends revocation. So I could, I guess I can make a motion to withdraw my motion for suspension, which would need to rescind,
Yes.
which needs a second. So I'll make a move to,
You're rescinding the board action, or commission's action.
yes.
You're rescinding the vote in its
Yes.
entirety.
That needs a motion and a second.
Yep.
Yes.
So make your motion.
Move to rescind the board action to suspend taxi cab driver Yusef Shahida Michael's license.
And I second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Move to-
opposed?
Move to revoke based on the previous suspension and the long history of Mr. Michael's infractions. Move to revoke permanently his license to operate a taxi cab in Davidson County.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we got other business on there? Any other business? Wait, I'm sorry. Mr. Wallen, did you say you had something you wanted to add?
No, I have nothing further, actually. Thank you.
We had a kettle carriage story, ready to go.
I had a good story, but
Thank you, Mr. Wallen.
thank you. Defer to another day.
All right, other business, Mr. Rooker?
At this point in time, we got a couple of hearings we need to
We do.
sign off. You can read your.
But no other business?
No other business stuff for the commission, no, sir.
All right, at this time, the chair will need to make a statement, a notice here. The broadcast section of this meeting has concluded. The remaining portion of the meeting will not be broadcast because the commission will be considering confidential and protected criminal history background information of driver applicants. Questions should be directed to the Transportation Licensing Commission office at 615-862-6777. All right, are we off air, gentlemen?
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.